Mm-hmm.
You can go through.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
You have Counselor Annie,
yep.
what do you recognize them to be?
Pardon?
What do you recognize it to be?
Kendy's in our conversation?
Back on January 19th of 2021. Basically, Kendy looking forward to things in the future.
Yes,
And using an accurate set of text going back to that particular date.
yes.
Move to admit 39A.
No objection. 39A is admitted.
Move to publish the same.
You may publish it. All right, you may proceed.
Thank you. You have in front of you two pages stapled together, so one is 39B, do you recognize it?
Yes.
Who do you recognize it to be?
Talking to Kendy, senior attorney?
It's you and her having a conversation.
Yes,
Dealing with visiting the lawyer
yes,
on January 27th, 2021.
yes,
And then after your text between the two of you.
yes.
Move to admit 39B.
No objection. 39B is admitted.
And move to publish 39B.
You may publish it. may continue.
Thank you, Judge. You have in front of you what I've given you a few minutes ago, labeled as 39C. Do you recognize it?
Yes,
What do you recognize 39C?
Kendy's body makeover.
I'm sorry, can you talk into the microphone as
Oh,
best you
okay.
can? It's hard to hear.
39C text between you and Kendy
Yes,
about upcoming events,
yes,
January 28th, 2021.
yes,
Is an accurate series of text about on
yes,
admit 39C.
Well, good. 39C is admitted.
Move to publish.
You may. You may continue.
And you have in front of you what's marked as 39B. Do you recognize it?
yes,
What do you recognize it to be?
Kendy's mark text.
Yeah, are these texts between you and Kendy and current events that she's looking for? in the future?
Yes,
And are these texts dated to January 30th, 2021?
yes,
Or the accurate text between you and her on that day?
yes,
Move to admit 39B.
Well, good. 39B is admitted.
Then move to publish.
You may publish it. Okay, you can continue.
Then you have in front of you what's going to 39E, you recognize. Not the stuff I just gave you, the stuff on fire left hand there.
Yes,
When you recognize 39E,
Texas.
text between you and your daughter.
Yes,
The text between you and your daughter on February 2nd of 2021, the day she died.
yes,
Or the after text from that.
yes.
You can remit 39E.
Good. 39E,
And
and you may publish it as well. You may continue.
thank you, Judge. Ma'am, I've said in front of you what's already been admitted is 3A and B. Recognize 3A. Might be on the back.
Yes,
We recognize that speed.
January calendar.
And now we're for January 2021.
Yes,
On the date that Kendy called you, on January 29th, and the date that she drove down to Canyon, would you write that on that particular date, on that calendar with the court's permission?
yes,
So just write on there, call from Kendy drove down to Canyon. And then put your initial file on the 29th of January.
okay.
You understand?
I don't have a pen.
And then if you turn to the second one, B, you can write on there on the board, you go to Athol, after you learn your daughter was dead. If you were here, just write, go to Athol, please. And don't with your issues. No further questions?
Hang on just a second. Cross-examination.
Oh.
Johnson.
You mentioned earlier that Kendy was cremated.
Yes,
You received half the ashes, correct?
no,
Wyatt gave you some ashes, correct?
no,
You told Wyatt there'd be a conflict if Dan showed up to the memorial, correct?
Jason Houston.
It's
Overruled. It seemed not for the truth of the matter asserted, but the effect on the listener. Overruled. You can answer that.
I don't remember that.
Do you believe that you received all of the ashes?
I didn't receive any ashes.
Do you know what happened to the ashes?
Yes,
Did Dan have some of the ashes as well?
did what?
Did Dan receive the ashes?
I don't know.
You aware of a conflict between Kendy and Brian on the 1st and 2nd February?
Yes,
You're aware that Brian blocked Kendy on social media? That's
I didn't know Brian did. I knew Kendy did. Blocked him.
during that weekend, you had conversations regarding Kendy and Dan filling out the divorce paperwork, right?
Yes,
And she specifically said that it was going amicably, correct?
I don't know. Don't remember that either.
Dan paid for the body prep, correct?
Yes,
He paid for the casket that was used at the viewing.
I guess so.
He paid for the viewing.
I guess.
He paid for the cremation.
Yes.
He was not invited to the memorial, correct?
I didn't invite him, and I don't think anybody said anything about him.
He was not welcome. You were not wanting there, correct?
No. If he came, there wouldn't have been any trouble. There was.
Dan was frugal.
Yes,
Dan tried calling you guys on the morning of the 3rd, correct?
no.
So it was on this call.
Pardon?
It was on this call.
No.
Mobile phone. No further questions.
Can you redirect?
How do you know there was no missed call?
Pardon?
How do you know there was no missed call?
Well, you know, actually, we were on the phone from, 6 that morning, calling her workplace and everything and talking to Brooke, so I don't know if it had missed call. We would have answered any call.
And so you had no call from Dan on the day after your
No,
daughter died.
no,
Did you have a call from Dan the day that she did die?
no.
Council asked you some questions about whether or not Dan was invited to the funeral. Were the 200 people plus who came to the funeral invited, or was the date just made known and they showed up?
The date was made and they showed up. We didn't invite anybody.
How did you make that date of Kenny's funeral known?
It was in the paper.
And so anybody that could read the paper could find out when Kenny's funeral was,
Yes,
and could come to Kenny's funeral?
yes, it was in the Coeur d'Alene paper and the Lewiston paper.
And did that posting in both those locations show the address and date of the funeral?
Yes,
And so Dan was free to come to that funeral had he wanted to.
yes.
You mentioned that had Dan chose to come to the funeral of his wife, there would have been no trouble. Do you remember that?
Yes,
What do you mean by that?
there wouldn't have been any trouble.
Yeah.
I don't know, we wouldn't have done nothing. Wouldn't have been us.
Did Kendy block Brian because Brian told,
Objection, speculation. False speculation.
Any response?
I haven't even asked the question yet, Judge.
All right, I'll wait to hear your question.
Why did Kendy block Brian?
Objection, false speculation.
You know, lay foundation if she knows.
Do you know why Kendy blocked Brian?
Yes,
And how did you come by that information?
Kendy,
When did Kendy give you that information?
was whenever Dan and Brian were going to Dan's dad's.
Was it just before she died?
Yes,
Around February 1st of 2021?
I think it was the day before, when they were on their way down.
That would be February 1st,
Is that,
2021.
okay,
She died on February 2nd, right?
okay, but they were going down, they stayed the night, then they came home, I think the first, didn't they? I don't know.
That's okay. We have another witness that can establish that for us. But what I'd like to know is, when she told you about why she blocked Brian, how did she tell you?
On the phone,
And can you describe her emotional state at the time she told you this?
she was angry. And you never see Kendy, that's the only maddest I've ever seen her.
And how did that manifest itself?
They blocked each other and
No, I mean, how did you know she was angry when you were talking to her?
her voice.
Was it high?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes,
Okay. Did she seem upset about what she was telling you?
yes,
Did she indicate to you when she told you about this information that she had just gotten it?
yes,
And did it put her into an excited state?
yes,
Did she explain why she was in that state in her statement to you about why she blocked Brian?
yes.
What did she say?
How would she say? If Brian's blabbing his mouth and he runs this divorce and whatever, I will never talk to him again.
Did she get specific about how Brian may have been ruining the situation?
And I think it had to do with the house.
Did it have anything to do or not with Dan Crowder?
Objection.
Overruled.
With what?
Dan Crowder.
Not that I know of.
What happened to Kendy's ashes?
Wyatt got half and Brooke got half.
Broken horses.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Next witness for the state.
Jed Nixon.
Morning, Mr. Dixon. All right. You come forward, please. Please face my clerk and raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. If you'd have a seat. You may inquire.
Thank you. Could you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Jed Nixon, Nixon.
How are you employed?
I'm an attorney. I own my own office,
What's the name of your practice?
Nixon Office,
What type of law do you practice?
family law and criminal law.
What percentage of your practice is between those two areas?
It varies over time, but probably works out roughly to a 50-50 split.
Within the area of family law, what kinds of areas do you deal with?
Whatever issues come up, so general divorce proceedings, custody modifications, property settlements, prenuptial agreements, postnuptial agreements, whatever issues can come up in that area of law, which can be quite varied.
How long have you been practicing in the area of family law?
Roughly a little over 21 years, almost 22.
Do you have any special licenses or certifications to do?
I'm Idaho State Bar license and 20 years of experience.
And how long have you been licensed with the Idaho State Bar?
21 years, over 21 years.
Do you have any other educational background?
Bachelor's degree at University of Idaho, law degree at University of Idaho, CLEs and training through the course of the year, several courses, and family law. I'm not going to say every year, but probably every other year.
And do you engage in continuing education to stay up to date on developments in your field, new areas of the law, and maintain your ability to practice in that field?
Yes.
Who's your approach?
You may?
Showing you what's been marked as states 89. Do you recognize this?
I do.
What do you recognize this to be?
My very extensive CV.
Is this accurate and up to date?
It is.
Move to admit states 89.
No objection.
89 is admitted.
So Mr. Nixon, in talking about family law, you mentioned divorce. You also mentioned custody disputes and property disputes. Are custody disputes and property disputes often part of divorces as well?
Yes. Sometimes they involve both. Sometimes if there's no minor children, it's just a property issues in relation to the divorce.
Can you describe in broad strokes the process of getting divorced in the state of Idaho?
Well, generally, a party comes in and consults with myself, and we go over the issues that may be involved in the divorce proceeding. If there are minor children, we certainly talk about that, and the issues surrounding child custody, child support. If it's property only, then we discuss the nature and bounty of the estate, the extent of the estate's holdings, the assets, liabilities, and we discuss how best to divide those.
Someone walks in and wants a quickie divorce. How fast could that happen?
It depends. Some magistrates in the area, if they receive a stipulated resolution by both parties, it can happen fairly quickly. Some will wait 21 days if a party has appeared pro se before they sign a stipulated agreement. Depends on the judge, but I mean, realistically, the quickest you're going to get is maybe a month.
And just to clarify a couple of things, so magistrates would be judges that handle divorces,
That's correct.
and pro se would be someone who isn't represented by an attorney. Is that correct?
That is correct. And sometimes we have people that come in mutually or have worked out an agreement and just want an attorney to draw up the terms and conditions of their agreement.
And in your over 20 years of experience, you are familiar with the local bar that handles divorce cases in this area?
Yes.
And largely, the process that you're describing is what all attorneys in this area do?
Yes.
So how does a divorce complicate or not as it relates to asset division?
Well, it depends on how much is held by the estate, whether or not there's, if it's just bank accounts or real property. If there is, in Idaho, what we call separate property or community property. Community property is the basis of Idaho family law, meaning that everything that is purchased, not everything, but there is a presumption that anything purchased during the course of the marriage is going to be community property, meaning it's held equally by both parties.
So just to drill down on that a little bit, so what you're saying is that regardless of who brought that asset into the marriage, it's held by both parties?
That's the presumption. I mean, there's
Hey guys, sorry about that. I was on the phone. I had like phone call which turned into another phone call I had to take. So sorry about that. Day 4, Daniel Howard. This is Jed Nixon. He is an attorney. He was involved in as things were starting to crash and burn. So the last lady up was Kendy's mom. And yeah, we're going from there. So let's see how this is turning out for Daniel. Not looking so good so far, but time will tell.
obviously differences. There's what's known as separate property, but the presumption in Idaho is if something is purchased during the marriage, that's going to be a community asset.
So if a couple is married and say the husband works outside the home and is the sole income earner, the wife would still be entitled to half of that monetary income?
Yes.
You mentioned that is a presumption. What would make something separate property?
If a party owns something prior to the marriage, and they, for example, a house, and the party moved into that house still maintains a sole and separate property characterization. The party that is asserting that as their sole and separate property has a burden of overcoming the presumption of community property in Idaho, or any reimbursements the state or the community may have to that sole and separate property.
Does the presumption of community property change if you are talking about, say, an estate that has a small amount of assets versus an estate that is a high asset, say over $1 million?
No, there's no monetary distinction as when it comes to community property.
Have you personally handled high asset divorce cases?
Yes.
Are they more complicated?
They can be, not necessarily. I mean, quite frankly, I mean, you used $1 million in North Idaho with our home price, our housing prices. It's not that uncommon to have states when they consider a value of a piece of community property, real property, to be over $1 million.
Would personal properties such as cars or boats, tractors, would those also be considered community property?
Yes, any property, real, personal, bank accounts, that's all community property.
Would that be real property that, say, has a house on it and also, say, an empty land lot?
Yes,
Would that include bank accounts like checking and savings?
yes,
Would that include retirement accounts like 401ks and Roth IRAs?
yes, as long as that retirement was earned during the course of the marriage. If someone had started the job prior to the marriage, the income earned or put into the retirement is going to be considered community property. That's where it gets to be a little complicated. There's a separate order used to divide retirement accounts.
So if one spouse worked for an employer for, say, 20 years, and they were also married to their spouse for that 20 years, that spouse would be entitled to half of that retirement account?
Presumptively, yes. Yeah, under community property law, yes.
What is community debt?
Same idea. Basically, if the parties had incurred a liability such as credit card bills, mortgages, or any other potential debt that is going to be considered a community item that needs to be handled within the course of the divorce.
So practically speaking, how does asset division work within a divorce?
Well, that's each case is dependent upon what assets are held. If the parties are lucky enough to have more assets than liabilities, the goal is to try to divide those assets equally. You can't always do that, but at least to come close as that as possible.
So does that mean that everything is sold and then the money is divided?
I would say that's the last resort.
What's the usual way?
Really, with the help of attorneys, family law in Idaho, we really try to focus on trying to resolve case short of a trial and having a court decide. The attorneys with the parties oftentimes will attend mediation, and they will try to make sure each party has an equal share of the assets. You can't divide a house in half. You can't divide a car in half. It's just the goal is to try to add everything up and then make sure both parties come out of it relatively equal.
So if you can't cut a house down the middle, how do you divide up the assets?
If the house is, and again, North Idaho, we're lucky enough now that most houses are worth more than what's owed on. You try to figure out the equity in that house, see what that number is, and come to an agreement. Sometimes the house is sold, and that's the only way they can do it. But there are other ways to do that. You can take into considerations in dividing the retirement accounts or the bank accounts, or if there's stock or vehicles or those types of things. If there's more than one parcel of real property, there's oftentimes ways to handle a division in that manner, to have one party take certain parcels and the other party take others. There are offsets that you can utilize sometimes by selling things, but it's every case is different, but the goal really is to try to equalize as much as possible in most cases.
And so it doesn't matter if you're offsetting, say, a house with a retirement account or a car with an empty piece of land. You're looking at those values. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And is that, in fact, common and the preferred method to divide assets?
Yes. As I said, generally we try to avoid having parties sell items to, but sometimes that's the only way to handle it.
Do you ever see parties give more than they get?
Yes.
In what circumstances do you see that?
There's value and peace of mind in resolving cases, and sometimes trying to just get the case done and be done is one time where you see parties are willing to give a little more than they take.
Is sometimes getting to the divorce being finalized the goal?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sure. Do you ever come across parties who just want to be done with it?
Yes, quite frequently.
And in doing so, do they sometimes leave money on the table and just walk away with what's most important to them?
Yes.
Let's say that a community property had $2 million in assets. And $200,000 in community debt. Would there be sufficient assets to offset the debt?
Without knowing the specific nature of the assets, I can't say for sure, but for example, if you have a house that's worth 1.8 million of that, then it might be a little difficult, but if you have other assets, there likely would be a way to work through that. It's an equal settlement.
Now, you mentioned that divorce proceedings sometimes can take a while. What happens if the assets or the debt within the community changes in that period of time where the parties are trying to sort this out?
They often do, and it depends on why it changed.
Well, let me ask you this. Why does it often change?
People have to live their lives, they have to move on, they have to plan for the next stage of their life, whether that's incurring everyday debt that we have to incur, your car breaks down and you have to fix it, or arranging new housing if the parties are separated. You got to move forward. And as I say, divorces can happen quickly, but they can also, if contested, they can take a while. It can take sometimes over a year.
If one party were, say, to introduce new community debt during the pendency of a divorce, can that be sorted through?
Frequently that happens, yes, absolutely.
Do you know Dan or Kendy Howard?
I do not.
Have you ever represented them?
No.
Were you asked to review any police reports or facts in this case?
Not generally, no, not specifically.
No other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Any cross-examination?
Briefly. Morning.
Morning, Mr. Johnson.
Now, do clients ever come in that haven't been through the divorce process before, that don't understand the process?
That is probably the normal case, yes.
There's a lot of misconceptions about if there's infidelity, do they get more or less, right?
Did you say misconceptions about that?
Yes.
I would say that's fair, absolutely.
In general, this is a no-fault state, right?
In general, yes, there are still fault-based grounds.
But having an affair wouldn't change this the community split, would it?
That's hard to say. It depends how the action is pled in the petition, actually.
Now, the large states, you said it's not uncommon. In over 20-some years, we've been doing family law through that whole time.
Yes,
And it's not uncommon to have large estate divisions.
large estate divisions, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you.
Yes, division of large estates.
Yeah, no, it's not uncommon.
You practice, Council asked you about your practice. You practice criminal defense and family law.
Correct.
Is the pay structure different in those two?
Objection, relevance?
That's about right.
It wasn't.
Our place, you said earlier that the goal is to avoid a trial, correct?
I mean, generally, that's my goal. I don't know about every attorney, but I try to help my clients avoid that process.
Now, the longer a family law matter drags out, the more it costs either the client or the state, all right?
Again, depends upon the nature of the agreement between the client and the attorney. There are attorneys that on occasion I do flat fees for divorces.
Is it more common to do it by the hour?
I honestly don't know. As far as other attorney practices, I would say most do have some form of hourly representation agreement, although some will take a chunk up front for a flat fee and another amount for later for trial.
Now, one of the first things that you would do when a client comes and asks about a divorce is ask if it's going to be amicable or not, right?
Sometimes you can usually tell just by talking to the client whether or not it's going to be a fight or whether or not the parties have talked. But sometimes they don't really indicate one way or the other.
And if it is going to be amicable, you would want them to provide a list of who's getting what to put into the paperwork, is that right?
When you say them, I assume you're talking about my clients.
I'm saying yes, in general, people in general.
Okay, it's pretty rare to have two people come in together. I just say as a husband and wife, or any other form, husband, wife, but could you repeat the question?
Yes, sir. So when a client comes in, they say it's going to be amicable, but they want you to do the paperwork. Would you want them to give you a list of what's being split, what assets are being split?
Yes, specifically, generally when it comes to at least title items where legal documentation will be necessary in order to remove one party from an asset, you would want to ensure to include that in the divorce judgment.
So for instance, a real property has to be included in the divorce.
Yes, it should be, absolutely.
And if it's not, it would be an omitted asset that could be brought up later.
Potentially, yes, for purposes of ownership and mortgages and any money tied to it, you would absolutely want to cover that in the divorce.
Just one. Wasn't a question, thank you.
Thank you. Can you redirect?
Just briefly. So if a potential client came in and had questions about potential misconceptions, whether that's about how an affair could influence the divorce, or whether a particular piece of real property would be included in the divorce, is it not your role as an attorney to answer those questions?
Absolutely.
And if the client went home and thought of the question, would they call you?
Happens all the time.
Your clients call you a lot?
Yes.
No other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. You may sit down.
Thank you, Alex.
Ryan Wilkins is next.
Right. Good morning, sir. Are you Brian Wilkins? Yes. Can you come forward, please? Will you please face my clerk and raise your right hand to be sworn in?
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you, sir. You have a seat there in the witness stand. Ask you to try your best to speak in the microphone so we can hear you well.
Okay.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Thank you, Judge. Sir, can you say your whole name and spell your last?
Brian Wilkins, Wilkins,
Who is your mom and dad?
Janie and Wendell.
Can you pull that mic just a little closer? Sorry, the acoustics in this room are not fantastic.
Who was your sister?
Kendy.
Where'd you grow up?
Canada. Idaho.
And growing up, were you close to your sister?
Yes, very close.
As you got older, were you still close to your sister?
Yes.
Are you familiar with Dan Howard?
Yes.
Here today?
Yeah.
Can you please point him out, describe where he's seated, tell us what he's wearing?
Blue coat, white shirt.
When did you get to know Dan Howard?
Early 90s when they got together.
And through the course of the 90s and into the 2000s, did you at times go up to Athol and stay with him?
At that time, we lived in Lewiston and Powell, and during that time, I was helicopter logging, so I was gone quite a bit.
I'm talking about the years through the 90s into the 2000s.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to their house in Athol for any reason?
Yes.
What kinds of reasons?
Holidays, birthdays, just to go visit.
All right. And did you become acquainted with Dan at least somewhat?
Yes.
What was Dan's, to your knowledge, based on your being around him, attitude towards money?
It was very tight, cheap.
What kind of person was your sister? Was she outgoing or not?
Yeah, she was very outgoing. Fun to be around.
Are you familiar with Kendy's attitude growing up with her and being around her towards guns?
I don't believe she liked them. I've never seen her handle one or be interested in that.
Were you around enough towards the end of Kendy's life? Last couple of years she was married to Dan. What their relationship was like?
They fought a lot, argued a lot.
Did you
Wasn't
ever
really good.
give your sister any advice?
I asked her how they're just gonna get a divorce the way they fought all the time.
Did you have a hand in Dan Howard getting a job up in Alaska?
Yeah, he applied some places and I gave recommendations. Small area up there, I know most of the companies.
And so were you working up there on the north slope, before Dan started working up there?
Yes.
How long have you been working up there?
Probably 10 years or 12 years before he started.
Okay. What do you do up there?
Drive equipment, trucks, things like that.
What sort of, work schedule do you have?
I do a 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off.
Okay. And when you're not working, where do you live?
Lewiston, Idaho.
When you're working up there, describe a typical day.
Get up, go eat, you work 12-hour days minimum, go back to your
So is it
little room and do it all over again the next day.
it's like a dorm-like
Yes,
living situation?
yeah, and usually most places the bathrooms are communal down the hall and you got a cafeteria and, things like that, just like a dorm room in college basically.
Okay. And so, going to, say, the end part of December 2020, January 2021, what was your work schedule and what was Dan's work schedule?
We were working the same schedule, but he was on night shift, I was on day shift.
And so, when did you come back? Your sister died on February 2nd, right?
Yes.
2021?
Yes.
When did you come down before that?
I got home on the 28th of January, I believe.
Okay. Do you know when Dan got back?
I believe the night before,
On the 27th?
I believe so.
On February 1st, 2021, did you agree to travel to Lucille with Dan?
Yes, I did.
How did that happen?
He told me before he left Slope that his dad was moving and needed help moving some stuff around in the shops and things like that.
Did you agree to help him?
Yes, I did.
At this time, on February 1st, and stretching back beyond that, were you friends with Dan?
Yeah, I mean, we did things. I mean, we weren't tight, I don't feel. I mean, we, spent time on holidays, fished a few times, hunted a few times. Mostly it was with my sister and the family was there.
Alright. And so on February 1st, did Dan pick you up?
Yes, he did.
Where did he pick you up?
Picked up my house around 11, 12 in the morning.
Okay, and so he is driving what?
His pickup?
Okay, and he drove down from Athol to pick you up from Lewiston?
Yes.
And from Lewiston, where did you go?
We went down to Lucille to where his dad lives.
So Lucille is south of Grangeville, south of Whitebird, down along the, what river?
Salmon River.
Shannon River, okay. And that's a couple hour ride from Lewiston? or so?
Hour and a half, 2 hours.
What did you and he talk about on the way down?
Basically, what was going on. He asked me if Kendy had a boyfriend. We stopped and looked at some property he was wanting to buy when the divorce got done.
Where was this property?
Slate Creek.
It's on the way down to Lucille?
Yeah,
It's off 95?
yeah, about a few miles from Whitebird.
Okay. Did he ask a lot of questions about Kendy?
Yeah, mostly about if she had a boyfriend.
Okay. And did it seem to you that he was suspicious of her having a boyfriend?
Yes, he was very suspicious.
Did the talk, was he persistent in asking you whether or not she had a boyfriend?
Yes.
And did you give him more information the more persistent he got?
I don't believe so because I didn't know about the boyfriend. I had a suspicion. I asked, and I was told no, they were just friends. And so I left it at that,
Who was your suspicion?
Daniel product.
How did you come by that suspicion?
My parents do concessions at auctions, and I was there, and they were spending a lot of time talking and stuff, and I just kind of thought,
Okay. I know you say you didn't tell Dan who Kenny was having an affair with, but did you tell Dan who you had suspicions
Yes, I did.
of who Kenny was having an affair with?
Yes.
So who did you tell Dan Kenny was having an affair with in terms of your suspicions?
Daniel Prado.
Okay. Pardon me for a second. Did you end up showing him something, or did he end up showing you something?
He showed me a printout of the house that Kendy was looking at in County, and it had Daniel's picture there because it was his site, his sale.
So did Dan have this real estate posting with Dan Prado's face on it with him
Yes,
when he rode down with you?
yes.
Where did he bring it from? A pocket from his truck? I mean, how did it suddenly materialize?
He had one of those yellow legal name pads.
Like this in there?
Yes.
Was tucked in there?
Yeah.
And where was this pad in the truck?
On the console or right there in the seat.
Hey, folks, you may.
I'm sure it's been admitted already, it's 35C. Does that look like the same thing?
Yes, it's similar.
You're gonna stick this on the envelope? All right, so, Mr. Wilkins, I know you can't see that thing, but I showed it to you. If you need to, feel free to leave your seat and move around. But in the upper left-hand corner of 35C, is that a photograph of Dan Prado?
Yes,
And then lower down is a photograph of the house. Is that the house Kendy actually bought?
yes, it is.
Okay. And is this something that Dan showed you on the way down to Lucille?
Yes,
Was it a single piece of paper like this? He took out a big pad like that?
yes, just inside there.
And so when he showed you that, with Dan Prado's name, did he say, is this the guy?
Yeah.
And what did you say to him?
Yeah, it was Daniel.
After you told Dan Howard that Kendy's boyfriend was Dan Prado, did Dan's behavior change?
It changed, but I never said it was her boyfriend.
One more time?
I never said it was her boyfriend.
You just said you had suspicions.
Yes.
Boyfriend, right?
Yeah.
After that happened, did Dan become agitated?
Yeah, he seemed agitated, withdrawn a little bit.
Okay. Did you eventually get down to Lucille that evening?
Yes.
What happened in Lucille?
Really nothing. His dad wasn't ready to move stuff, so we just talked and ate dinner,
So you go down there for no reason,
pretty much.
other than to have this conversation with Dan on the way down to Lucille?
Yeah, and
That evening, where did you sleep?
upstairs in one of their bedrooms.
And exactly who all was there?
Dan, his dad, myself, and another man that I don't remember his name.
Do you know whether or not Dan slept that night?
Didn't sound like very much. You could hear him in his room moving around, and you could hear noises from his room.
Overruled.
Where was his room in relationship to your room?
Just kitty corner from mine.
You have wood floors?
I don't recall.
Did you hear him walking around at all or not?
Yes, I did.
What period of the night did you hear him walking around?
Most of the night.
Before the group of you went to sleep, was there a conversation about Dan and Dan getting divorced?
The next morning, me and his dad had brought it up after we get ready to leave.
Okay, where did it happen that you brought this up?
At the dinner table.
Okay.
We were having coffee.
And did Dan participate in the conversation?
Yes.
Can you tell us what he said?
He didn't really say much. We just told him, sounds like it's time to move on. You know, she wanted a divorce. He really didn't have much to say.
How was Dan acting that morning?
Agitated, anxious to get home.
So this is the morning of February 2nd, 2021?
Yes.
Now, what time do you think you left Lucille with Dan?
We left, I think it was pretty early, like 7 or 8. We went and had breakfast in Ribbit.
Okay. Was it just you and Dan that had breakfast, or?
No, all 4 of us.
Okay. And from there, did you leave?
And then we had to come back and get a dance pickup and left from Lucille.
About what time?
Probably 10.
Okay. And Dan told you he wanted to leave earlier than that?
Yeah, as soon as we woke up, he was ready to leave.
I mean, what time was that?
I think we went downstairs around 5:30.
In the morning?
Yes.
How did he express his desire to leave that early in the morning?
We didn't have nothing to do, so we were just ready to go.
So you didn't really work down there at all?
Not that I recall, because his dad wasn't ready to move stuff around.
Describe the trip back to Lewiston.
Pretty quiet. Dan was texting. I figured my sister, and it was pretty quiet, not awkward.
Why was it awkward?
Just because it was so quiet, and you could tell he was upset and
Upset because,
whatever, probably just texting about it, and just what was going on, probably.
how was his driving?
He was texting, so he was swerving on the road.
What do you mean swerving around the road?
Just I would drive off towards the ditch or across the center line. Just it was
Was he driving over the speed limit?
Yeah.
How much over the speed
probably
limit?
10 or 15. I think it's only 60 up there.
Was he driving recklessly on the way home?
Yeah, probably just not paying attention.
Was that because he was agitated
I feel so.
over Kendy?
I'm sure.
When you got to Lewiston, what happened?
He dropped me off. We talked a little bit, me and my girlfriend, and he left.
Did you tell Dan you were coming up the next day on February 3rd, 2021?
Yes, I did. I was going to talk to my sister
Did you tell him why?
because I wanted to get her side of the story because I didn't know what was going on, about boyfriend and what she was doing. Nobody had told me anything about it.
And she blocked you from some social media at that point?
Yes, something like that.
Why?
I'm not really sure what was being said. She just told me to text me to go fuck myself, and that was that.
Was it because she thought that you had told Dan about Ronald?
More than likely, I was told that by my mom because they were texting each other.
How many times did you tell Dan Howard that you were going to come up and see your sister on February 3rd?
Quite a few. I believe I even said it before we left the slope. I was going to come see her about it.
Why did you tell Dan Howard so many times that you were going to go personally see your sister on February 3rd?
Just because the conversation kept coming up that she wanted a divorce and things like that. So,
On February 1st, when you told Dan Howard on the way back that you were going to see your sister the next day. So on February 2nd, when you were driving back and you told Dan Howard that you were going to see your sister the next day on February 3rd, did you tell Dan not to hurt your sister?
I asked him on the way down if he'd ever hurt my sister because the stuff we were talking about, and I just was kind of concerned.
How many times did you tell Dan not to hurt your sister on February 2nd?
I just asked him if he had hurt my sister. The one time going down and then later.
The next day? The same day?
I asked him in the morning that my sister was dead. I asked him before I left his house.
Well, we're about to get to that. So, did he contact you that same day, February 2nd, after he dropped you off? Call?
Yeah, he did in the afternoon, asked if I heard from Kendy because she had came home from work yet.
Did you and he have a conversation
I believe it was just a text. I don't think it was much.
in the afternoon of February 2nd?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any other contact with him on the 2nd?
No.
Okay, so let's go to the next day on February 3rd. Did you have any contact with Dan that day?
He called like at 6 in the morning, said
she's gone, and I asked him what was he talking about, she said he was gone, and then he hung up.
Did you say anything other than she's gone before you hung up on her?
No.
Did you try to call him back?
No, because I think my dad told me to call my dad, and then they told me.
After hearing what they told you, did you make a decision?
Yes, I was already getting dressed to go up there.
So did you drive that morning on February 3rd to Athol Police?
Yes.
By yourself?
No, my girlfriend was with me.
Okay. When you got to the Howard residence, what happened?
I parked, Wyatt came out, and said his dad was inside in the kitchen there, and was real distraught, and I just walked in.
All right, so you walk to the front door and go to the kitchen living room area?
Yeah, but he was downstairs at a wood stove bar area.
About what time on February 3rd this was?
Probably around 11.
Yeah, you've known Dan a very long time, it sounds like.
Yes.
Dan, the type of man that when he greets you, he looks you in the eye and shakes your hand.
Yes.
Would he invariably do that over the many years that you've known him when you would meet?
Every time he firm handshake, look in the eye.
And did that happen on February 3rd at his residence?
No, it did not.
Describe what happened.
We sat there for a while. Dan was like covering his eyes and leaned up against the bar. I sat there for a while. I reached out to shake his hand. Didn't shake it very firm. I asked him again if he had ever hurt my sister. He never made eye contact. He just said no. I gave him a little bro hug, and we left.
Were you able to see Dan's face at all when you came up to his house? You walked downstairs to where he was sitting at the bar.
No, he was kind of bent over the bar with his hands on the bar and his face down in his hands.
So he was covering his face up for you?
Yeah.
Did you see any tears or anything like that?
No, I shook his hand. I didn't see no tears.
Did he have any expression on his face whatsoever when one hand left to shake yours?
No.
Did you go to Kenny's funeral?
Yes, I did.
Where was that?
And yeah, I have the church.
How many people came? About?
Say a couple hundred.
Did Dan know?
No.
Spoken question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Cross-examination, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Right. Now, Dan has given you recommendations for instance, your current job, right?
He was used as a reference.
Your sister only come, right?
I don't know.
When you went down to Seal, you stopped to look at property,
Yes.
and that was in anticipation of divorce, right?
Yes.
The plan, as was indicated, that they would both move.
I assume so if he was looking for property.
And you said that he drove you back to Lewiston. He went into your house when we dropped you off, right?
Yes.
He spent about 10, 15 minutes there.
Public.
Now, he talked about eye contact and handshake. In your years of looking him in the eye and having him shake your hands, had he ever lost his wife before?
No.
Over.
Can you read right?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sit down.
Is the board fine to take a break or would you like to hear the
Let's review. The break. Sure. Why don't we take a 10-minute break? We'll be in recess for 10. Thank you.
Okay, guys, sorry about that. We're back. Sorry, I had another set of calls come in there. Yeah, Daniel Howard, that wasn't good. The realtor, yeah, just kind of stating that was more just to show like what was going to happen, and Daniel was going to get taken to the cleaners and lose half of everything. Sell the marital property and the community property interest, which that's common for pretty much every state. And the one thing I will caution everybody is that California does everything different because they are the. Oh, hold on one second. So that's kind of where we are, guys. Like, yeah, Daniel's kind of boned when it came to that. So we're going to skip ahead here. I hope everybody's doing well. So we're just waiting. Judge is on there like he's picking horses for the weekend. We're just waiting and baiting. So the one thing I did want to say, guys, Feelhammer, like I said, he's done some help for me. Guys, he only needs like 10 or 13 more subs. Apparently, the visiting dog that Sean won't show us. We tried to show him last night. He's a big dog. I'll try to see if I can get him again. But Feelhammer, guys, and I didn't realize, you know what YouTube does now? To get monetized, here, listen to this shit. Listen to this shit. To get monetized now on YouTube, you only need 500 subs. That doesn't get you up. At 500, you get super chats. You don't get the CPM money, but you get the super chats. That's fucking crazy. I wish that was a rule when I was doing it, but no, that wasn't. Vealhammer's 11 away. If you guys can help him out, I would appreciate that. He's helped me out, and just like to pay him back. Also tonight, Salvador Dali is interviewing and speaking with Ty, the Treehouse Man, and his wife. So they are doing that at 6 p.m. tonight. I know you guys are here, but if you guys want to go see that, certainly no hard feelings. But he's going to be interviewing them, talking to them about their coming up case and everything that's going on. And that's it's going to be at 6 tonight. Oh, hold on. Here, Louis, come here. Hey, Louis, come here. All right, you guys want to see the dog? Here we go. Here's the dog. Oh, hi, buddy. Hi. Look, here's the dog. Oh, you've seen the dog. Hello. Yes. Okay, I'm good. Oh, he's got claws. There, you've seen the dog. So that's the dog sitting dog. Oh. Yeah. Hey, buddy. So there you go. Now you got Clyde. Okay. So there you go. You guys are all set with what you needed. So, yeah, we got a pony. Now it's just a dog we're watching for the week. So just want to make sure you guys see that. It says, okay, it's about to say it's not a foster child. No, it's not. And I'm going to be sending you an email soon. So yeah, that's kind of the game plan with that. Just want to let you guys know. But anyways, back to the show. And yeah, like I said, 6 o'clock, Dolly's doing his interview. If you guys want to join him, by all means do so. I mean, Cody the Bum saying hi, how you doing? Sorry, a lot to be so obnoxious on Flashcast. Dude, if that's like saying I'm sorry the fish swam in the water. That's what fish do. Fish swim in the water, Lofty's a tool. Like, I bet Lofty's real last name is Black and Decker or DeWalt at the end of the day. So That dog is the size of most cats in Australia. Yes. All right, guys. So, we're gonna get going from here. All right. So let's keep going. We just time traveled a little bit. Phil Hammer, hello. How you doing? We're almost there, buddy. Like I said, guys, check him out if you can. Lottie was talking smack about me. Yes, he was. We talked about it last night. But if you get to like about the third hour of Flashcast, holy shit. So, anyways, we're gonna finish up.
Looks like we're all done publishing 72A through I.
Okay. You have a witness number?
Yeah, Matthew Riggs.
Oh, Matthew Riggs. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Come forward, please. Face my clerk and raise your right hand this morning.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sir, if you have a seatbelt, sir.
Thank you.
You got one.
Thank you. Sir, can you say your whole name and spell your last?
Yes, my name is Matthew Rakes, Rakes.
How are you employed?
I'm currently an attorney. I'm self-employed
Whereabouts?
here in Coeur d'Alene.
How long have you been an attorney?
I've been practicing since 2014.
What sort of work have you been doing over the last 10 years?
Primarily family law stuff, so divorces and custody, those sorts of things.
Oh, belongs I have.
Back in January of 2021, where were you working?
I was working for a local firm here in Coeur d'Alene, Amendola, Doty, and Brumley.
Is that firm have a side to it that practices family law?
It does.
Is that what you were doing there in 2021?
Yes.
How long had you been at that firm back in January of 2021, approximately?
I began working there in January of 2016, so whatever the math of that works out to 5 years approximately.
All right. Working for that law firm in terms of family law, was there a procedure that you followed based upon what they wanted you to do in terms of when you're talking to a new client that they want a divorce or some sort of child custody change?
Yes.
What was the procedure that you followed with basically every family law potential client?
So essentially that potential client would call in and set an appointment that would get on the calendar. They'd come in, they'd fill out some initial kind of intake paperwork, and then come up and meet with whichever attorney they were meeting with, myself or whoever else it was, and have a conversation for, I don't know, half hour, an hour, something like that. And depending on how that went, we would either give them some additional paperwork if it looked like they were intending to retain, or if there was nothing further, then we would just wait and see if they called back or whatever.
So if you thought that there was a possibility they were going to retain you, what sort of paperwork would you give them?
Depends on the case a little bit, but typically in a divorce, it has to do with things related to property division or custody issues. So essentially we had a packet of information that would include their name, their address, information about how they wanted to divide property. In other words, kind of an inventory of property and inventory or a schedule of debts. If there was children involved, that would involve some custody determinations, things like that.
So part of this paperwork, it sounds like, included a division of property that they were supposed to fill out. Is that accurate or not?
That's correct.
And these clients then that would come in, that you actually gave paperwork to, you would instruct them how to fill that out and to list their assets.
Correct.
Would you instruct them to give a ballpark of what each asset was worth?
Yes, on that form, typically the form we use is kind of almost like a spreadsheet sort of thing where it has the item and then there's a few lines of stuff that they have to fill out, including who they want to receive that property, any debt that's owed on the property, and the approximate value of the property.
Okay. On January 26th of 2021, did you meet with Kendy Howard?
I did.
And did this occur at your former employer's in Doty?
It did.
What was the nature of the meeting with Kendy Howard?
It was a consult for a divorce.
Okay. Can you run us through what happened, please?
So generally she came in, so the way it was set up, my office was upstairs at the building. I would come down into the front lobby and get the person who was waiting kind of in our waiting area. I'd introduce myself, bring them up. So that's what happened with her. I brought her up to my office. We had a conversation. It's pretty typical of the way I have those conversations where I kind of narrow down what the issues are. So the first thing I ask is how long someone's been married, if they're still together or if they're separated, are there any children involved? And if so, what's the nature of that? There wasn't any children involved in this case. And then we move on to start talking about assets, whether there's real estate, whether there's retirement accounts, bank accounts, all that sort of stuff. And then discuss kind of what the Idaho law talks about with those things in terms of community property and how those things are likely to be divided by the court and what that stuff looks like.
Okay, so the conversation you had with Kendy Howard covered all those aspects, division of property, community property in Idaho, what would happen with their assets, all of those topics were covered between you and Kendy?
It was, yes. If
If you remember, Can you describe for us her demeanor in terms of a potential divorce?
She was nervous coming into that a little bit hesitant to discuss some things, which is not uncommon. And it's always a difficult thing when people are talking about their personal situation. But she was nervous about that, and had some questions about the property division and what that might look like, and about what would happen during a potential separation while the case was pending, about whether or not they sold property or bought property or things like that. So we had some conversations about that stuff, and during that she was kind of more engaged and interested in what we were talking about, and a little less nervous about that.
At some point, did the issue of a recently purchased house in Kendy come up or not?
I can't remember. There was a discussion of a house that I believe was in Kendy. I can't remember the exact location, and I can't recall if it was if she had recently purchased or was considering purchasing it. But we did discuss the implications of that. Yes.
And you filled her on. You, I guess, guided her on the law in terms of potential piece of property that was bought during the divorce.
Correct. I informed her that while the marriage is still existing, even if the divorce has been filed, it's still considered community property. So the court's going to consider the division of that asset.
And so she left your office knowing that on January 26th.
Yes.
Would you characterize your demeanor in talking with her as scared or not?
I would.
Characterize it as what?
As scared. I would characterize it as that.
Let me show you some exhibits. They've already been admitted. May I approach, Judge?
Grace, I'm going to take this opportunity to ask you to just pull that mic a little bit closer, or maybe just lean forward a little bit. Thanks, our acoustics aren't great.
That's fair. Thank you. Sorry about that.
We'll put these on the helmet so everyone can see, Mr. Riggs. Starting off with 35A.
Mr. Riggs, just given the scene, you may need, if you want to step into the well, if it's easier to refer to the photos, you're welcome to do so.
Hold this around this direction, maybe.
Okay, Mr. Riggs, you're looking at what's already been admitted as 35A. You recognize that group of people in the A, B, and B beneath it.
I do.
What do you recognize that group of people to be?
That is, well, myself in there, and then the other attorneys that worked at Amador, Doty, and Brown.
And so would that have been part of the pamphlet or paperwork that you would send someone away who you consulted with for a divorce?
Very possibly. I don't remember specifically if anything with that image is in there. Certainly things with the logo, but I don't remember specifically if that image is in there.
Okay. And then the next one I wanted to show you is 36D. You recognize that paperwork without necessarily recognizing the handwriting inside.
I do recognize the paperwork.
What do you recognize that paperwork to be?
That is part of that paperwork I was discussing that we provide to potential clients to fill out. That includes name, address, information. There's additional pages to that include those property division issues that we've spoken of.
Okay, that would be including the pamphlet that you'd send a potential client away with.
Correct.
I think we're done with the exhibits. If you want to retake your seat, that would be great. And then one more to show you. It's already been admitted as 16. Recognize that?
I do. That's one of the, it's kind of a maroon, essentially like folder that we put those paperwork in for potential clients and give them to them to take home.
And that would have been something she would have received on January 26, 2021?
Yes.
Okay, you can rotate to the
did you set up a follow-up appointment with Kendy?
I don't recall that I did, but that's not uncommon.
Did you expect her to come back?
I expected her to complete the paperwork and return it and pay her retainer and move forward with the process, yes.
And she did not.
That's correct.
No further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination, Mr. Johnson?
Briefly, Your Honor, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Is it common for clients that come in to talk about divorce to be nervous?
It is.
And then there's a two-part process on becoming a client. There's the initial intake,
Correct.
and then after they sign an agreement and pay a retainer, they become a client.
Correct.
She had not signed an agreement or paid retainer.
That's correct.
No further question.
Can you read it?
Well, thank you, Judge.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I mean, yeah, resign retainer, no. I mean, that's not really a, it's not a mic dropper, but I guess he asked the question.
Good morning, sir. If you would step forward, please. I'll have you face my question and direct hand this morning.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I see you.
Thank you, Judge. Sir, can you say your whole name and spell both your first and last names?
Bryant Keith Gunnerson, Bryant Gunnerson.
Can you tell us how you're employed, sir?
I am a special agent with the FBI and have been so for almost 19 years.
Fed boy.
I am located here in
Fed boy.
Coeur d'Alene, Idaho,
And have been for how long?
for the majority of my career outside of my training in Quantico.
Do you have a specialization within the FBI?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
I work primarily white collar crimes. Due to my background, I graduated with my master's degree in accounting. I am also a certified fraud examiner and have been so, I believe it's about 8 years.
So in terms of your education, you have a BS, is that accurate?
Yes, I have an undergrad and a master's in
Your
accounting.
undergrad is in accounting?
Yes,
Master's is in what?
accounting
And then you are a certified fraud, what was the term?
examiner.
Examiner. How long have you been so certified?
I believe it's been about 8 years.
Okay, how did it come about that you did that? What did it take?
It took me, I basically had to pass an exam with the, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically the entity that creates an exam on fraud. And you basically have to learn what the terms are, what different types of fraud there are, and how those things will be investigated.
I've got here what's been marked as 88. One page. Can you look at that? Tell me if you recognize it.
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that?
That was basically my profile. It explains my background and kind of like a resume.
It's a resume that has your education and training on it.
Yes.
88 is good.
When you work a case, a white collar, say fraud case, do you frequently rely on materials, information, documents that are obtained via a search warrant?
Yes.
Can you give a little more detail to that, please?
Yes, federally I use a subpoena, but we also will use search warrants. Basically, if I need to obtain bank account information, I will explain why I need the bank account information, and we will submit a search warrant or subpoena to the bank. If I need health insurance information, I would do a similar process and basically recreate that process for potentially any financial information that I needed during the investigation.
Okay, and basically throughout the years, and in terms of your investigations, have you had to utilize search warrants or subpoenas in order to get records in an effort to establish how much, say, a person or an entity or persons might have in regards to assets?
Yes.
How do you do that?
It's basically, I would look at the bank statement, I look at the balances in the bank account on a particular date. I would go out, look for properties, and then basically look at what the property values could be based upon an assessor's value, what may be if the house is for sale, what it's being listed at, knowing that a property is going to be ultimately worth what somebody pays, but that gives me at least a basis point. And then for insurance or retirements, I would look at what the balances are in the accounts on a particular date to help me come up with the value.
And I assume this would include current income as well?
Yes.
This would include potential retirements as well?
Yes.
Would you, in addition to tallying up assets in order to figure out how much an entity or a person or persons are worth, figure out liabilities?
Yes.
Would that be part of the essentially the same equation?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I assume there's other people like you in this country doing the same thing, certified fraud examiners?
Yes.
And are these types of experts like you, people that rely on those same types of documents to come to conclusions and opinions and things like that?
Yes,
In this particular case, did you agree to work on the case involving Dan Howard?
yes, I did.
Did you, at some point in time, look through various records in an effort to come to a total of their assets back in the early part of 2021?
Yes.
What types of records did you rely on in order to come to a total or a summary of their assets?
I had, I was handed a small sheet of paper that had been obtained during a search warrant that listed out a number of assets in handwriting with some potential values out to the side of it that helped me begin some things I should be looking at. I obtained bank statements to obtain what the balances were on a set date. I also worked with the sheriff's office to obtain life insurance policies to see what may be there, and retirement accounts for both individuals to determine what the balance in those accounts would have been about the particular date I asked about.
As well as their current incomes?
Yes,
Okay. And so did you tally up those assets in the same fashion that you've done before in the past?
yes,
In the same fashion that other experts in your field would do?
yes,
And did you create a summary of the Howard's assets back in the early part of 2021?
yes.
I'll show you. Exhibit. Show council first, it's 56A.
What number did you say?
56A.
56.
And then you, sir, do you recognize 56A?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that as being?
That is basically what I obtained from their bank statements, showing deposits going into their bank statements from the employers that I had been informed that they may have worked for,
So
both
this-
Kendy and Dan.
Okay, so, yeah, so 56A, is that an accurate summary of the income of the Howards back around this time frame that you speak of?
Yes,
Right, and does the summary accurately set out their income for various months back in this time period, 2018 to 2020?
yes,
And will this help you with your testimony during the day?
yes.
Move to admit 56A.
56A is admitted.
Move to publish 56A.
You may.
And then with the court's permission, I think the easiest thing to do is step out here. You're okay doing that. We'll have a pointer for you.
That's fine. You can step in the well there and just move out as you need to.
Hopefully this will be close enough for the jury. Get yourself situated over here. It's on. Here's the pointer. It's on. And then perhaps beginning over here, describing what we have here, and then maybe working over here, Kenny.
So basically, I created the incomes I could see coming in for Dan Howard and another column for Kendy Howard. Based upon conversations I had with the detectives working the matter, I've been informed of potential different entities that Mr. Howard or Mrs. Howard would have worked. She was, I was told, a nurse, so I listed basically from the bank statements the deposits that were going into the accounts from Kendy Health to come up with this list for the payments, and then down to the bottom, I totaled what for this time period, it was January of 2018 to January 21, what her total income entering the bank statements I was looking at would have been. And then the other field, or the other columns, were the columns where I was informed that Mr. Howard had been working or would have been receiving the incomes from, and total each of those columns based upon what I discovered in the bank statements during that time period.
And so what do you have there at the bottom of that exhibit?
Down here was basically kind of an average what Ms. Howard's average monthly income was, the gross monthly income, and then based upon their tax returns, what they reported on their tax returns for income.
And the time frame for this information?
This, it looks like this column may be truncated, but it looks, Idaho return for 20, and then the other one says the same, but I'm not sure if it's 20 and 2021 or.
Okay, so in terms of the income coming through in various amounts, what years were those for that you tallied up?
It would have been 2018 to basically through 2020 with 1 month in 2021.
All right, thank you. I got to lay the foundation for this next exhibit, so if you don't mind you taking your seat. The second one is 56B. Show it to council, and then you recognize 56B.
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize 56B?
This is basically a summary of the information I collected, identifying the assets that they had and the values associated with those assets.
Okay, so these assets will include raw land,
Yes,
it will include their house,
yes,
money in bank accounts.
yes.
Anything else I'm missing?
I believe there was retirement accounts associated with what they had earned and was sitting in a retirement account that would be collected upon retirement.
This is what they wrote together back in around January 2021.
Yes,
Can you just help with your testimony here today?
yes, it would.
Who's the bid?
56B is the bid.
And I wonder if you could do the same with 56B that you did with the. Basically, pick anywhere you want.
So basically, what I have on the far left side of this column here was basically the assets that had been identified throughout the investigation. Some of the information, or some of the assets were identified off of a handwritten note that had been provided, that had been obtained through a search warrant. And then here were basically retirement accounts associated with Mr. Howard, bank statements, and what the balances were, and then some other assets that they had obtained. And then Ms. Howard had a life insurance policy, and it summarizes what the life insurance policy would have been. And then at the bottom of the sheet, it basically identifies, the top is identifying all the assets that were owned based upon information I had been provided, and then the bottom were the debts that were owned at the time, the same time period.
And so for those of us that are, we learn from hearing better than looking at, about how much in total assets did the Howards have around January 2021?
Based on these values, it totals about $2 million in assets.
Okay, and liabilities?
The liabilities, it looks like there's $11,000, $12,000 that were owed.
Okay. And did you learn during the course of your investigation that there was a house in Candy I purchased towards the end of January 2021?
Yes,
Is that listed there?
that is not listed.
And would that have been an asset or liability if it had just been purchased with a small down payment?
I believe all that had been paid was the escrow amount, so basically they agreed into a sales agreement, but from what I understood, it did not come to conclusion where all the documents and everything had not been signed yet, so because of that, I did not consider that an active asset.
You can retake your seat if you like, sir.
Bad boy. He's probably lying.
We're going to put on the Elmo what has already been admitted as 36B. You probably can't see that. If you don't mind leaving your seat again, just for a moment. You mentioned using some documents that were provided by the Sheriff's Department in terms of assessing values for various pieces of property and things like that. Looking at 36B, does that appear to be one of those documents?
Yes, it does.
And then the next one I have for you is 36C. Essentially the same question for you. Is that one of those documents that you utilized in coming to your values for these items? Thank you very much. You can take your seat again. Thanks. No further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination, counsel?
Briefly over. Good morning. Now, Special Agent, you're highly experienced in being able to calculate values of different items, right?
Yes,
Do you know if, how many years was it that you've been doing your job?
about 18, 19 almost.
And do you know if those documents, whoever filled it out, has that same level of experience in figuring out values?
I do not know.
No further question.
No, thank you.
Thank you, sir. You may sit down.
Would the court consider a lunch 12 minutes early?
We'll go ahead and break our lunch hour now rather than starting the witness for 10 minutes. So we'll be back. Why don't we kind of give me an hour and a half. We'll be back at 1:20. We'll start back up. So we'll be back at 1:20 while you're on recess. As always, I'll try to back to discuss the case. As long as you don't have anything else.
Hey, guys. So, yeah, I mean, That, like, we already knew there were assets, yes, and they're establishing the motive is he killed her for the money. That's the reason why he did this, apparently. So we're going to time travel. Ooh, although I do like the defense attorney's new glasses.
Just address one thing, Your Honor. If after the break, we would request that you remind the jurors not to go through their notebooks during other testimony or anything like that.
Are you concerned that that's happening?
Yes.
That's a valid thing. Like, their job is to pay attention. If, like, some judges give notebooks, other judges are like, nope, you don't get them. And that's the reason why sometimes they screw with their notebooks. So that's an issue.
Thank you, man. You got to see right with this thing. As best you can if you speak in the mic.
Okay.
Thank you. You may part.
Could you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Sure, Kristen Angela Miller, and my last name is Miffler.
How are you employed?
Currently in self-employed.
Do you have a particular profession?
Yes, psychiatric nurse practitioner.
Within that profession, do you have a day job?
Yes,
What's your day job?
I go around the state of Washington and try to help with the institutionalization of the mentally ill in Washington.
Do you also have a, for lack of a better phrase, side hustle?
Yes,
Can you describe that?
for sure. My side job is real weight loss. That was another business that I opened, and that has been a part-time business that I've had for many years now. I developed it after researching a national brand, or there's a program that is across the nation that works like that. And so I developed it after a client or a colleague had actually kind of asked about it. So I started inquiring slightly, and I did that to pay off my student loans.
Let me ask you a couple follow-up questions. Do you remember approximately what year you started that company?
I would guess 2017.
I couldn't say, what the fuck is your job? Hold on here, guys. Oh, I forgot to turn up the volume. Sorry. We're going to rewind it a minute here so I can hear what the hell she does.
Okay, Angela Miller, and my last name is Miffler.
How are you employed?
Currently in self-employed.
Do you have a particular profession?
Yes, psychiatric nurse practitioner.
Within that profession, do you have a day job?
Yes,
What's your day job?
I go around the state of Washington and try to help with the institutionalization of the mentally ill in Washington.
Do you also have a, for lack of a better phrase, side hustle?
Yes,
Can you describe that?
for sure. My side job is real weight loss. That was another business that I opened, and that has been a part-time business that I've had for many years now. I developed it after researching a national brand, or there's a program that is across the nation that works like that. And so I developed it after a client or a colleague had actually kind of asked about it. So I started inquiring slightly, and I did that to pay off my student loans.
Let me ask you a couple follow-up questions. Do you remember approximately what year you started that company?
I would guess 2016, 17.
And in your time in running that company, were you the primary nurse involved in that, or did you also bring on other practitioners?
I was primary. We did have 2 other nurse practitioners throughout the time, not the whole time. The first nurse practitioner that we hired to assist would have been in probably a couple of years ago. I apologize, I'm not really great with timeline.
Sure, that's okay. So fair to say it's mostly been you?
Yes.
Okay. And is this a big business for you? Do you keep a lot of clients?
No.
At any point in time, kind of what's like the smallest number of clients you've had on hand versus kind of what's the largest number?
Probably smallest, I don't know, it could be 5 to 10. I mean, and the largest, maybe 100.
Okay. Has it been different sizes at different points in time within that timeline you described?
Yes.
Okay. You previously stated that you designed this off of a national company. Is that correct?
Correct.
And in doing so, did you kind of tailor that to your own business needs?
Yes.
Did you utilize your own medical background in sort of feeling comfortable with this business model that you adopted?
Absolutely.
Can you describe how the program is basically structured?
Sure. So it's structured for folks that have compulsive overeating disorder or binge eating disorder, and they go through a series of questions. We rule out if they have if there's another cause, so which is typical. If you're going to treat somebody, then you want to rule out the other possible reasons what it could be. And once those are ruled out, then they, based on what the program is meant to do, is to help people create their own happiness. And so there's certain guidelines that they have, but they could we would work together. Either it's 1 month, 2 month, or 3 month, and then there was a 6 month program that we set up for folks that were needing a longer term.
Would you say that you had sort of a target demographic?
Yes.
And who would that be?
Folks that are having trouble losing weight and have compulsive overeating.
And would that be mostly women?
Yes.
If you, in the initial screening, determined that there was some other source or cause for their overeating or their weight, would you have kept that person or would you refer them on?
No, I would refer them on. It would have been, yeah.
Particularly, I want to talk to you about your business in the late 2018, 2019, 2020 timeframe.
Okay.
As you may recall, there was a pandemic going on kind of in that period of time.
I do.
Did that have an effect on your business?
Very much.
Can you describe how that changed your business structure?
Sure. I would meet with my clients face-to-face in my office and prior to the pandemic, and then I had to go to telehealth for quite a while.
And so when it came to both sort of intakes and follow-up meetings, was that typically done in person during that period of time, or was it done through some sort of platform?
Through some sort of platform.
You described that the program was tailored at different lengths. Was that something that you would work out during initial intake?
It would be I like to work with my clients quite a bit, and it would be something that we work together. The goal is to start the medication, and you take it until you get your goal, and then you go off it. So we would kind of collaborate, but it was mostly the intake.
And then if someone, say, went off of your program and gained weight back, could they come back to you?
Yes.
Was that common?
Yes.
Within your program, were there particular drugs that you prescribed?
Yes.
What drugs were those?
Phentermine was a primary medication that we used for the weight loss. Prozac, in addition to the phentermine, it helps sustain the length of the phentermine in the body, and Topamax if they needed it. The Prozac and the Topamax were if they needed it, in addition to the phentermine.
And were what was the primary drug of the program?
Phentermine.
And dosage-wise, would that have been the drug that they received the largest amount of?
Oh, yes.
What about the Prozac and the Topamax?
Prozac was the smallest possible dose that you could ever get, and the Topamax is the same, just a very tiny dose.
When you were doing either intakes with your clients or in follow-up appointments, were there any screenings that you did with those individuals?
So yes, we went through a series of questions, and with my background, of course, I was very cautious about wanting to make sure that I was a safe method in how to help support clientele. So asking a series of questions, ruling out any possible bipolar disorder or mood disorder, depression, because those things would be contraindicated with the program.
So you were not looking to treat people that might have those kinds of mood disorders or other psychiatric issues?
No, I'm really lost.
Is your program designed to treat mood disorders or psychiatric issues?
Not really lost.
Do you prescribe Prozac, Topamax, or any other mood-altering drugs for major depression within real weight loss?
No.
Did you have a client by the name of Kendy Howard?
I did.
Was Kendy Howard a constant client for you, or one of those that you saw once, or did she come back more than once?
She came back more than once. Pretty typical.
And was that due to that kind of lose and gain pattern you previously described?
Yeah.
During the times that Kendy Howard was your client, did you prescribe her the drugs that you just described?
Yes.
When she would come back, did the prescriptions change?
And that sort of depends. Again, I work with my clients. It would depend on the situation and what they're having trouble with. So if I could explain just briefly, okay. So the phentermine is the main medication. That's the one that they take. And then what the phentermine does is it slows down the excretion of, the Prozac does, it slows down the excretion.
Phentermine's an amphetamine. So yes, taking an amphetamine causes you not want to eat. That's why the mean and phentermine is an ene. It's an amphetamine. So, yes.
Of the phentermine. That many people like to drink coffee, some like to smoke. That increases the rate of the excretion of the phentermine. So Prozac actually slows that down. That's the only purpose of the Prozac. So if they really weren't having a hard time, how they would know is the medication would stop working too soon. And then usually it would be they're having this compulsive overeating before bedtime, eating time, and then that wasn't quite successful. So if you added the Prozac, then it would just kind of prolong it throughout the day, right before they could at least ensure their sleep. So it was really, if they needed it, and I would work with folks as far as like, you don't have to take it, but if you need it, it's there. And then the Topamax was really meant more for cravings. If people had like some significant like, sugar cravings, or if it was on top of it, they were still having troubles because it's always, our society. I don't know if I need to say more.
Sure.
Okay.
So each time that Kendy Howard would come back, would she have that same screening for potential mood disorders?
So she wouldn't have the same screening. It would be basically when I do an intake, we develop a trusting working relationship, and I wouldn't go through all the same screening. They do full palette or panel, whatever you want to say, pretty much once a year. But with the follow-ups, those are a little bit, how's it going? What do you need? Are you sleeping? Are you eating? Are you, at least eating? Are you, those are kind of the big things. You're tolerating medication, that kind of thing.
Permission to approach the witness.
Right.
Ms. Miller, we've been talking about Prozac and Topamax. Does Prozac have a generic name?
Fluoxetine.
And does Topamax have a generic name?
Topiramate.
And is phentermine the generic or the brand name?
Generic.
Does it have a brand name?
Adipex.
I'm going to show you some pictures. These are 45A, 45B, 45C, 45D, 45E, 45F, and 45G. Have you ever seen what's depicted in these pictures before?
No.
Is there anything in these pictures that you do recognize?
Sure.
Okay. Do you recognize, what's this? Do you see your name in any of these pictures?
Yes.
Okay. And is that present in each of these? And I'm happy to slow down if
Oh, sorry, no, it's fine. Yep. Yes. 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 Yes.
Ms. Miller, were you treating Kendy Howard for major depression?
No.
Were you treating her for any mood disorders?
No.
If she had major depression or a mood disorder, would it have been inappropriate for her to be in the program?
Yes.
No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So you seem passionate about helping mental illness. Is that right?
Correct.
And you said over in Washington, or does that mean like the institutionalization such as at Eastern State Hospital?
Correct.
And you describe yourself as a psychiatric nurse practitioner?
Yes.
And you would agree that often when a person has an illness of one sort, they can often have a secondary illness as well?
Objection, relevance beyond scope.
It's not beyond scope. She talked about her practice and what she treats her. I'll rephrase.
Okay.
The Miss Howard came to you because you said you treat binge eating disorders?
Correct.
And were you treating her for binge eating disorder?
No.
You did prescribe the medications you listed earlier to her, correct?
Correct.
And those included Prozac?
Correct.
No further question.
Need to redirect?
Ms. Miller, you treat two kinds of disorders, correct?
Correct.
Binge eating disorder and compulsive eating disorder.
Correct.
What is binge eating?
Binge eating disorder is where it's more just they have certain times. It's not as consistent. I would still treat that. However, the compulsive overeating is something that's a compulsion. It's more like an obsessive compulsive sort of thing. So it just matters in the behavior of the eating patterns. So some folks would, not eat all day. They might eat a huge meal. And then some would be just, if I start eating, I can't stop. It's kind of a compulsive thing.
Were you treating Kendy Howard for compulsive overeating?
Correct. Yes.
No further questions.
Thank you, ma'am. You may be excused.
Okay, thank you. Derek Hollenbeck, next.
Sorry.
Derek Hollenbeck.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, sir. You can do it right now, just so you know.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you, sir. You have a seat there, please. Thank you. You may go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Sir, can you say your whole name and spell both your first and last names?
My name is Derek Hollenbeck, Derrick, Hollenbeck.
How are you employed?
I am employed by the Kendy County Sheriff's Office
How long have you worked there?
since 2008.
And what do you do now?
I am a sex crimes detective with Special Victims Unit
How long have you been with the Detectives Division at the Sheriff's Department?
since about 2016.
And part of your duties help executing search warrants for various crimes?
Yes, sir.
On February 17th of 2021, did you execute a search warrant or help execute a search warrant up in Athol, Idaho?
Yes, sir.
And for which residence was that?
For the Dan Howard residence.
Can you tell us what the focus of your part in the search warrant was?
My part was taking photographs.
God dang, some of these guys need to like. I hope their office listens to this. Some of you guys do the microphone right, some of y'all don't. Jeez.
Of the outside shop and the two vehicles that were on scene.
Okay. In terms of the shop, did you end up taking a photograph of a gun safe?
Yes, sir.
Where was that gun safe in relationship to the shop?
It was inside the shop in the center of the shop.
And did you take that photograph of the door? With the gun safe open?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm going to show that to you as soon as I find it. But did your search also extend to a vehicle?
Yes, sir.
What kind of vehicle?
It was two. One was a Dodge pickup truck, and the other one was a Equinox.
And was one vehicle associated with one person in the marriage?
Yes, sir.
Which was which?
The red Equinox had Kendy's ID in it.
And how about the pickup?
Pickup had Dan Howard's wallet in it.
In terms of the search of Kendy's car, did you locate a number of items?
Yes, sir.
Can you generally describe those for us?
In the center console, I found a couple of receipts from Super One and one bank receipt and a Maurice's receipt.
Throughout the rest of the car? What did you find throughout the rest of the car?
The rest of the car had one bag in it, and then a whole bunch of empty boxes in the back of it.
Did you locate anything else that you took from the car that you brought with you today inside the car?
Just the receipts, sir.
Okay. Could you go ahead and pull those out for me? I think we've labeled them as 68.
Yes, sir.
What is 68, sir?
68 is a binder where I put all the receipts into it.
And are the receipts within that binder the same receipts you took out of Kendy's car on 17th February 2021?
Yes, sir.
And are they relatively close in time to this incident?
Yes, sir.
Are they in the same or substantially same condition now as they were when you took them from Kendy's car?
Yes, sir.
And it's me, I need to admit 68.
68 is admitted.
You have in your hands a photograph of a safe with some firearms in it. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What do you recognize that to be?
Is a photograph I took of the contents of the safe.
Okay, for the record, that is exhibit number 67A. Does that reflect what you could see when you executed that search warrant on 17th February?
Yes, sir.
Move to admit 67A.
67 days admitted.
So I take it you did not participate in the execution of the search warrant on February 3rd of 2021 at the Howard residence. Is that accurate?
That is correct, sir.
Nonetheless, in terms of the various detectives who did participate in that search, you're still employed at the Sheriff's Department.
Yes, sir.
And some of those detectives are no longer employed there. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you bring some things with you today that were booked into evidence following execution of the February 3rd, 2021 search warrant?
Yes, sir.
And have those been in the custody of the Sheriff's Department since they were booked in by those respective deputies back in early February 2021?
Yes, sir.
And have they been in your sole custody and control since you retrieved them from evidence today and brought them to court?
Yes, sir.
Let's work our way through the rest of the things that you have in that box you brought with you. Let's start with what we've labeled as 69A and B. Go ahead and take 69A and B out. It's going to be the Glock and the bullets associated with the Glock. If you can put that on that counter in front of you. Yeah, we just want the Glock for now. We're going to hit the Taurus secondly. So 69A, and then 69B, which are going to be the Glock bullets. Substantially same condition now as it was since it was booked into evidence by Kootenai County Sheriff's deputies.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's turn our attention then, if you will, to 70A and B. Do you recognize 70A?
Yes, sir.
What's that?
It is the Taurus.
And has that Taurus been rendered safe?
Yes, sir.
How so?
It has a zip tie through it.
Okay.
To the barrel.
So again, you can't fire that unless you cut the zip tie and load it up.
Yes, sir.
And then 70B would be the bullets associated with that firearm?
Yes, sir.
Are those two items in the same or substantially same condition now as they were when they were booked into evidence?
Yes, sir.
If you could turn your attention to, you can put that stuff off to the side if you got the time. 71. What's 71?
71 is the divorce custody intake sheet. Yes.
And that's been placed into a binder?
Yes, sir.
Inside 71, are there various sheets that pertain to partially filled out divorce paperwork?
Yes, sir.
That was on the downstairs bar when it was seized following execution of search warrant
I
on
believe so.
February 3rd, 2021?
Yes, sir.
And do those documents appear to be in the same, substantially same condition now as they were when they were booked into evidence?
Yes, sir.
As far as you can tell?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the last thing I think you brought with you has been labeled 72. Now 72 is a plastic baggie with a paper baggie inside and another plastic baggie. Do you recognize 72?
Yes, sir.
What do you recognize 72 to be?
It is the glass shards.
That were found in the bedroom upstairs in the Howard house?
What I believe, sir. Yes, sir.
I assume he's just setting foundations.
That's really not like. Yeah, that's not really that bad. Come on, man.
The objection was leading. You can approach.
I mean, yeah, but I feel like there's going to be so much more to. And guys, so the weight loss doctor, I was going to bring this up. The weight loss doctors that show Kendy wasn't trying to commit suicide. She was trying to turn her life around. She's buying a house, getting her, got to get your hair done, get your nails done too, all that, looking so Beal so damn unpretty too, as the song goes. So she was trying to do all this shit and move on with her life. And their argument is he didn't let her. So there was a lot of money at stake. And this right here, I don't really know. Catherine says, what time is the stream tonight? I have to take care of something, so it'll probably be around 8:30, 9 o'clock. It'll be right around that time frame. So that's what the plan is. George 13 says, or depressed. Yeah, she could be, but part of the issue was, and Ariel's right. Yes, if she stopped taking phentermine and Prozac, that could cause depression and self-deletion, ideation. It could. And I assume that's probably something the defense may bring up. We didn't really get to that much there, but we'll see.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so those items that we've just talked about.
Oh, no. It's always Eastern time. We are in Ohio. We are in the easternest of the time zones. So, nope, time zone of the East. God's time zone, if he had one.
We're going to leave them with the clerk. I'm not going to move to admit them at this time, okay?
Yes, sir.
What else you got left in that box? Anything else?
Just the P1FCU documents, sir.
Okay. After execution of this search warrant on the 17th, were you still involved in the investigation?
Yes, sir.
Did you, through the course of the upcoming weeks, execute search warrants on various other entities?
Yes, sir.
Like what?
I did one on P1FCU Bank, Bank of America, Navy Federal Credit Union, and Owsley. I don't know the whole name, but
Plastic surgeon?
yes, sir.
All right. I don't think I have any other questions for you. Let me go ahead and remove those items. We're in the hour watching this report. That's all I had, Judge.
Thank you. Dr. Detective, you said that on the 17th is when you went and did a search of the garage or the shop,
Yes, sir.
and that is at the same time you searched the vehicles,
Yes, sir.
and you found Kendy's ID in her vehicle,
Yes, sir.
and his wallet in his truck.
Yes, sir.
Those are the questions.
Thank you, sir.
Gary Tolson is next.
See, the witness in. Last
Now, guys, I use him just to show, hey, we found some stuff, and that's really what he was there to document. Now we're going to get more stuff. Here we go. Sorry, you're in Ohio. Move to Tennessee. Why would I want to move to Tennessee? All the people in California are like moving to Nashville. I don't want that. I like Ohio. Nobody moves to Ohio. So it's the best part about Ohio. So here we go. Let's see what this is.
as best you can, speak in the microphone. You may work.
Thank you, Judge. Can you say your whole name and spell your last?
Sure. My name is Gary Lawrence Tollison, T-O-L-L-E-S-O-N.
How are you employed?
By the state of Idaho as a detective.
Can you run us through your law enforcement career, please?
Okay. I have been a police officer for 47 plus years. I started out as an Orange County deputy sheriff in Orange County, California, worked in the jail, went to the academy, post-academy, graduated from that. Then they threw me back in the jail, and I didn't like that, so I quit and joined the Oakland Police Department. The Oakland Police Department then put me through the Oakland Police Department post-academy. I passed that, and then I worked in Oakland for 31 and a half years. I have worked as a beat cop, a traffic cop, been on the SWAT team for 21 years. I then made sergeant of police, went to criminal investigation division. I have worked in forgery, robbery, burglary, theft sections, weapons unit, then the special operations section. I retired and joined the Idaho State Police. I've been with the Idaho State Police for over 16 years. I have worked for Post in Idaho. Didn't like that, so I moved over to detectives, and so I have been a detective for 14 years for the Idaho State Police.
What sorts of things do you investigate these days?
I am a major crime investigator, so we do death investigations, homicides, major fraud. We do political.
This is interesting. If he's worked at the Idaho State Police that long, for 14 years, he worked there when Daniel worked there. Because remember, Daniel worked for the Idaho State Police for nearly 20 years. Until about 2014 when he got arrested. He got fired. Well, he allowed to retire, but it's because he got caught stealing ammo and other state property. So it's interesting. He probably knows this guy. I wonder if that's an issue, if that'll come up at all.
Crimes. I have investigated crimes against the governor, state senators, state assemblymen. I have investigated child deaths, child neglect. We do officer-involved shootings, and then anything else we're assigned.
You mentioned a post instructor. Did you do that in California as well as in Idaho?
Yes.
Can you describe essentially what that means?
In California, you have to go to a post instructor course, graduate from that, and then we teach in the basic academy. In the basic academy, I taught 8 of the core subjects for the state of California. When I came to Idaho, because I had the experience in California.
Also, guys, just so you know, post means peace officers standards and training. So it's basically like what your state does. Like if you're post certified, you're certified throughout your entire state, meaning you're a statewide law enforcement officer, and that's generally something you have to become a police officer, even if you're only working in whatever little town in Idaho or in Boise or in LLI or in some little place out in the desert in California. You have to meet your state's post standards. Otherwise, you're not a legally authorized officer to do things. So it actually is important. No, it's not that post, chat. Although that'd be very based. It'd be very based, but not that post. Not with Jim.
Yeah, I was hired for post for Idaho, and was then teaching instructors to teach police instructors. So I have taught police officers, command officers, and in-service training for 24 years.
Okay, and that would be in both states.
That's correct.
Back in the late 80s, did California train police officers in the carotid neck restraint?
Yes.
What's that?
A carotid restraint is a technique in self-defense where I would cut off the oxygenated blood to your brain, make you go unconscious so that I could control you.
What sort of training did you have as a police officer in that type of a hold?
It is taught in all the academies that I've been in, so I have probably been taught 40 or 50 hours of that.
As a police officer in California, have you utilized that hold before?
Oh, yes.
It's about how many times?
I have probably used it a dozen times.
Okay. I've got a couple of diagrams that I'd like to show you. Actually, one's diagram and two photographs. Yeah, approach. Yeah. 53A through 53C. So take a look at 53A. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
What's that?
This is a demonstration on the left side of the tiger or chantuary carotid restraint, and on the right side it shows a chokehold.
Carotid chokehold?
Yes.
And then 53B?
That is a demonstration of the carotid restraint as I was trained.
And then the last one, 53C?
That appears to be two men wrestling. It could be judo or jiu-jitsu, and one man is applying another chancery, or what it used to be called a tiger control chokehold.
And the difference between that and
The tiger control.
He's got his hand wrapped around behind the head, and he's.
I know Tiger Clan Kung Fu.
Would these three exhibits help you with your testimony here?
Yes.
Move to admit 53A.
Yes. Yes, guys, when this guy was a cop 45 years ago, he carried a billy club and a freaking 38. And I'm sure walking the streets of Oakland in 47 years ago would be, hold on, Calculadoro. It'd be 1977, I think, right? 45 years ago would be 1979. So like 1979, 1980, he's in Oakland. I'm sure this guy has beat the fuck out of some people with a nightstick. I'm sure this guy's done some police brutality in his day. Because like, as they called it, giving you the hickory shampoo, just whack, whack. I'm sure he's done that a time or two.
Okay, so we're going to look at 53A first of all. Describe what's going on the left and then the right.
On the left, you can see that the right arm is around
just some bros hugging. That's what it looks like. Bros being bros.
The neck. There's a V. His elbow is pointed towards the sternum of the subject. His left hand, or his weak hand, is wrapped around the backside of the subject's head. On the right, you can't see it as well, but his right hand should be attached to his bicep.
What's the difference between the two holds? First of all, in terms of naming them.
Well, this is a carotid restraint as I was taught. The second
on the left,
the one that on closest to me.
Okay.
And then on the far right, away from me, is more of a choke hold, but it is a partial carotid restraint because you can see where his elbow is out of alignment, but his forearm is across the neck.
What's your understanding based on your training and experience in the effects of either one of those?
This is the proper technique closest to me. What's going to happen is obviously your brain needs a lot of oxygen, and your heart's closest to your head, so it can oxygenate the blood, pump it up to the head. If you start to slow that flow of blood, or you cut it off, your brain's not going to get oxygen. First thing you're going to do is go unconscious. If you, on the far one, what I'm going to call is a chokehold, if I cut off your wind, I could kill you very quickly because you cannot breathe. But I don't want to do that. What I want to do is control you, so I'm going to cut off the oxygen to your brain and see if you go unconscious. If you go unconscious, then I can control you.
Let's look at the next one. It's 53B. What are we looking at there?
To me, this is two instructors. Obviously, one of them is still conscious because he has his hands up on the applied carotid restraint. The officer has kneeled down behind the subject and brought him to the ground, which is taught. You don't want somebody to go unconscious that's larger than you standing up. As you both fall down, you may break their neck, those kind of things. He's kneeling and supporting the back with his other leg. He has his hands and he's gripping his hands. The reason being, you're applying with your forearm and your bicep to both sides of the neck. You are not squeezing the throat. So this allows him to control that. He has his head up against the subject's head, not for control, but to protect his eyes, to keep someone from coming back and poking or clawing at your eyes.
And so that picture there, 53B, would be the way you were trained to apply the carotid hold,
Yes, the carotid restraint is, this is how I was taught.
and that would be the correct way to do it.
Yes, it looks like it's being applied correctly.
Based on your training experience, how long would you need to hold a person in that position in order to render them unconscious?
Very short, 5, maybe 10 seconds, depending on how big someone is, how much struggling you're doing, their physical capabilities. If they have a bad heart or the blood is not pumping well, they may go unconscious very quickly.
All right, and the last one we have is 53C. Can you describe what we're looking at there, please?
Yes, this could be judo, jiu-jitsu, Brazilian judo. The reason I say that is because they're grappling, they're on the ground, and both of them are on the ground. He has his hand across his throat. He's applying with his opposite hand. You see his left arm is grabbing his right bicep. He also is interlocking his legs on him. And this is taught in judo and jiu-jitsu. Your control.
Is this a proper carotid neck restraint?
No, it looks more like it's across his throat versus a carotid restraint.
And this is what you were taught not to do?
In police, yes.
And so let me run back again one more time to 53A. You've got the one on the left and the one on the right. The one on the left, that particular hold, carotid restraint, is what you were taught to do?
Yes.
And other police officers back in the late 80s in California?
Yes,
And the one to the right, that particular hold was incorrect. Is that right?
that's correct.
Okay. Forfeit. I think you ran us through your background. Let me show you what it's been like is 90, okay? Take a look at that. Tell me if you recognize it.
Yes.
Do you recognize that?
This is my CV that I provided to the prosecutor's office.
Is that accurate?
Oh, yes. It could be updated, I guess.
Okay.
What was your number, 90? Did you say? 90 submitted.
When you went from California to Idaho, was California still training in that the carotid hold?
Yes.
Was Idaho?
Yes, it was.
And it was Idaho training that in post?
It was on and off, but yes, when I first got here, it was, then it went away.
When did it go away?
I don't know the exact date. I wasn't working for Post at that time.
Do police officers today in California get taught that hold?
The foundation for it is long.
Thank you. Do you keep abreast of various agencies and what they teach?
I have in the past, yes.
Has there been a lapse in that?
I currently went back to it, looking at them again.
What's that?
I said I have looked at them again. Yes, I have gone back to looking at them again.
Okay, is that because you work for both California and Idaho in terms of being a police officer?
Yes, my interest in that, yes.
Is that because you've trained police officers in California and Idaho?
Yes,
Is that because you can't put the career of being a police officer behind you?
I would say that would be true.
Are you familiar with whether or not California still trains officers in the program?
They have stopped since the Floyd incident.
What about Idaho?
Idaho does not teach it in the basic academy, but it's my understanding that still in southern Idaho, agencies are still using it.
What's deadly force in Idaho?
What deadly force?
What is deadly force in Idaho?
It's the force that I have to use, or I can use against someone who's using deadly force against me, or force that may cause permanent bodily injury.
Is the carotid chokehold considered deadly force in Idaho?
By the Idaho State Police, yes.
You know Dan Howard?
I do.
Is he here today? Is he here today?
Yes, this gentleman sitting right here.
Seated next to his attorney dressed in blue?
Yes.
How have you known him?
We both worked on the Idaho State Police when I first came here.
Okay. Which was what year?
2007.
So you've known him for several years?
Yes.
In getting ready for this case, did you take a look at his records as a police officer at some point?
His post records, yes.
Okay. And would that include his post records in California as well as Idaho?
Yes.
Can you tell us, based upon your reference to his records, whether or not Dan Howard was trained in the use of carotid chokehold in California?
Yes, I believe the academy he attended, they did.
He did receive that training?
Yes.
No further questions. Wait, maybe. No. Did part of what you learned in terms of applying the carotid chokehold pertain to what happens if you keep persisting with the hold after someone is rendered unconscious?
If we're talking about the carotid restraint, the answer is yes. We were taught, or I was taught, not to apply it more than 15 seconds. It could cause permanent brain damage or death.
No further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Deputy Detective? So, may I approach the counter? Retreat, please? You stated, Detective, that you have taught the carotid restraint to other individuals?
No.
Okay. Have you been in classes that involve?
Yes.
And this is a classroom setting?
It appears to be yes.
In that classroom setting, are participants told to fight back?
I don't know what they were told in this picture.
Now, this classroom setting, this is 53A, is a lot different than the setting in 53C of wrestling, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it is a violent maneuver, correct?
Which maneuver?
The carotid restraint.
I would say that violence is yes.
And you said you had to apply it a dozen times in your career?
I would say that I have applied the carotid restraint about a dozen times.
When you apply the carotid restraint, would those individuals fight back?
The answer is yes.
And you mentioned earlier about on Exhibit 53B, the one here on this side, that is a proper way to do choke or carotid restraint, correct?
That is one of the ways to apply it, yes.
You're trained not to do it the other way. You don't want to cause permanent damage to any parts of the neck or anything else, correct?
Are we referring to the picture on the right?
Yes.
Yes, I would say that that is incorrect.
Okay. Is it incorrect?
Application of the carotid restraint. I would say that that was a chokehold on the right, a carotid restraint on the left.
Okay, correct. And you're trained to do a carotid restraint, not a chokehold.
That's correct.
A chokehold can cause permanent damage.
Yes, you can crush the larynx. It can swell up. They can choke to death. Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that in how you control it, often people's hands are going back.
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor. Permission to approach the court.
Yeah. Redirect Mr. Berger. Thank you, sir. You may sit down. Next witness for the state.
Wilkins?
Then you step forward. Please raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Feel free to have a seat with the stand. Again, as best you can, please speak into the. Thank you. You may inquire.
Would you please state your full name and spell your last for the record?
Brooke Kendall Wilkins, Wilkins.
Who was your mother?
Kendy
Kendy's last name.
Howard.
Is she your biological mother?
Yes.
You know your mother's date of birth.
4/30/1972.
What was your biological father's name?
Jim Forsman.
Did Jim Forsman raise you?
He had me on the weekends. I would say that predominantly through my childhood, Dan Howard raised me.
How did Dan Howard come into your life?
They were married the month before I turned 2.
And they would be,
Kendy and Dan.
do you know what year that would have been based on your?
1994.
Do you see the person that you know to be Dan Howard in courtroom today?
I do.
Where do you see him?
He is next to his defense attorney. He's wearing a blue jacket and a white shirt.
Do you know how long your mom and Dan dated before they got married?
I'm not for sure. I'm assuming around a year.
After they married in 1994, let me ask it this way, where were they living in 1994?
Cameron.
At some point, did they move?
Yes, we moved to Lewiston.
Do you recall approximately what year you moved to Lewiston?
98, 99.
That, you know, kind of what age?
I was about 5.
And then did something major happen in your family while you were living in Lewiston?
My brother was born.
What's your brother's name?
Wyatt Howard.
Do you know what year he was born?
96, 97.
And would Wyatt have been the biological child of your mother, Kendy, and Dan Howard?
Yes.
At some point after that, did your family move again?
Yes, we moved to Powell, Idaho.
Okay. And then at some point after that, did your family move again?
Yes, we moved to Athol, Idaho.
And when you moved to Athol, Idaho, did you move to a particular address?
30267 North Wheat Ridge Road.
And what year approximately or what age were you when you moved to Athol?
I was 11, I want to say, so that would put 2003.
And so your brother Wyatt would have been approximately how many years younger than you?
It's about 4 to 5 years, 4.5 years younger than me. So he would have been, I think, 6.
So at that point, was it the 4 of you living in that house on Wheat Ridge?
Yes.
And can you just kind of briefly describe that property?
It's on 10 acres, where the first house, on that road, where the first house, it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. We had a shop. We had multiple outpost buildings for farm animals.
Did you reside in that house for a number of years?
Yes.
Approximately how old were you when you moved out?
I moved out when I was 19.
You know what year that was?
2011.
And then did you live outside of the home for a while?
I did.
Did you at a later point move back into that house on Wheat Ridge?
I did.
What year was that approximately?
2015.
Okay. Was there a reason that you moved back home?
Yes, my rent was being raised, and I had a daughter, so to get her in a school system for a good set amount of time, I moved back home.
How old is your daughter now?
My daughter's 11.
How old was she when you moved into the house on Wheat Ridge?
She was 3.
Permission to approach Madam Clerk and retrieve some exhibits.
Okay.
Okay, so you moved back in to the Wheat Ridge house in 2015.
Yes.
Approximately how old was Kendy, your daughter, when you moved back in?
Kinley was 3.
Did you stay residing in that house for a while?
I did.
How many years did you reside there?
About 5 years. I moved out in 2020.
Okay. So 5 years plus another 8 years before that, with a little bit of a break in between?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of years that you lived in that house?
Yes.
When you lived in that house, did particular people have particular bedrooms?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you some diagrams that have been previously entered into evidence as states 2A and 2B. I'm going to start with 2A. But you can step out if you need to be able to see that a little bit better. Okay, so sitting right next to you, Brooke, there's a pointer.
Okay.
There's a green button that you can, yeah, there you go. Okay, so if you see a room on there noted as master bedroom.
Yes.
Who slept in that bedroom?
That was Dan and my mom's bedroom.
Okay. There's a bathroom off of the master. Who used that bathroom?
That's Dan's bathroom.
Did your mother use that bathroom?
occasionally when I was younger growing up, she would take showers and stuff in that bathroom. As I got older and especially after I moved out the first time, then she could only use that middle bathroom right there.
In your many years of living in this home, did you become accustomed with your mother's bathing habits?
Yes.
Can you briefly describe what her habits were?
So every morning she took a shower, wash her hair, wash her body. Every night to relax, she took a bubble bath. So always had something to bubble or bath oils and whatnot. She always put her hair in a clawclip. The bath was not to be cleaning, essentially, just a relaxation thing.
And when she would take that nightly bubble bath, was it always in that middle bathroom?
As I was an adult, yes.
There's 2 other bedrooms on the other side of that bathroom. Do you see those?
Yeah.
Whose bedrooms were those?
When I was growing up or as an adult.
Sounds like it changed?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about when you moved back in as an adult.
When I moved back in, this room right here was like my daughter's playroom, and this would have been her bedroom.
Now, in this picture, Brooke, we see some stairs up and stairs down. And then there's another diagram that I'll show you here in a second. Is your house a 3-level house?
Yes.
Okay. Are 2 of the levels on top of each other?
Yes.
Can you describe how that layout works?
Yeah, so you walk in through this garage, here's this main floor. You go up, that's the upstairs, you go down to the downstairs, and this upper level rests exactly on top of this.
Okay, so the master bedroom, Dan's bathroom and Kendy's bathroom would be directly above the lower level, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there is not a level in between.
Correct, just one floor.
Okay. Turning to 2B. Is this the lower level?
Yes.
Which part of this is underneath the master bedroom?
This area right here is going to be under the master bedroom.
And is that bath that's connected directly under Kendy's bath?
Yes.
And then there's also another bedroom down there.
Yes.
Laundry room as well?
Yep.
That would be under the upstairs bedrooms that we previously saw?
Correct.
Okay. Do these diagrams accurately depict your house as you knew it?
Yes.
You can see that. When you were living there as an adult, were things, were you able to observe who did what around the house?
Yes.
And was that because you were living there, staying there pretty much every night?
Yes.
You had lots of opportunities to view the other individuals in the house?
Yes.
During the period of time that you were living there as an adult, who else was living there?
So myself, my daughter, my mom, and Dan. For a very faint period of time, my brother Wyatt lived there as well.
Do you remember approximately what year Wyatt was living there?
A couple months in 2019 is my best guess.
Within the house, were there certain areas of the house that Kendy liked to spend time and hang out in?
Yes.
Can you describe that?
So the living room she would typically use is on the main floor. That's where she would watch TV. Then the bathroom, that main bathroom that she would use. The laundry room, she would be down in there. If me and my daughter were home, we could be up in my daughter's playroom.
What about Dan? Were there particular areas of the house that Dan spent time in?
Yes, Dan typically, if he was watching TV, he went into that lower level living room in the basement.
You mentioned that there's a shop and some outbuildings on the property as well.
Yes.
Did your mom spend a lot of time out there?
Not so much. When I was younger and we had farm animals, she would go out and take care of the farm animals. But as an adult, when we didn't have those, no.
What about the shop?
No.
Who typically spent time in the shop?
Dan spent lots of time in the shop.
What kinds of things were in the shop?
There was a boat, a camper, tools, a gun safe, a workout area in the back.
Was that a workout area utilized by your mom or by Dan?
By Dan.
Were the items that were out in the shop, were those Dan's items or your mom's items? Judge, I'm not asking it in a legal conclusion sense.
Primarily, all the items were Dan's. There were some Christmas decorations and such in the very back that would consider like family items.
Did your mom go out to the shop very often?
No.
You mentioned that there was a gun safe out in the shop. Is that
Yes.
correct? To your knowledge, was that gun safe locked or kept locked?
It was locked.
Do you know where that key was kept?
I do not.
Do you know who had access to that key?
Dan.
Do you know if your mom had a key to that safe?
My mom did not have a key to the safe.
Do you know if your mom had been given a gun by Dan?
My mom was given a gun by Dan for Christmas one year.
Were you present when Dan gave your mom a gun?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately how many Christmases before her death that occurred?
Roughly 5 years. It had been some time.
In the 5 years after, well, let me back up. You observed the exchange between Dan and your mom of this particular present.
Yes.
Okay, can you describe what you observed?
My mom got a Christmas present that was not normal, so she opened the gift. She realized it was a gun, and she was immediately unhappy.
In the 5 years between your mom receiving that gun at Christmas and her death, did you know her to shoot that gun?
No.
Did you ever see her shoot that gun?
No.
Do you know if that gun was kept in the house?
For a short period of time after it was given as a Christmas gift, it stayed on the bar counter in the basement.
At some point, did it move?
Yes.
Do you know where it went?
It went to the gun safe.
And is that the same gun safe that you previously mentioned?
Yes.
The one that your mom did not have access to?
Yes.
In the many years that you lived at home with your mother, did you ever observe her clean a firearm?
No.
Did you ever observe her load bullets into a magazine?
No.
Did you ever observe your mother fire a gun of any kind, hers or otherwise?
A Nerf gun?
How about one with real bullets?
No.
In your home, Brooke, was there a particular place that medicines were kept?
Yes.
Where was that?
So in the kitchen, there's the kitchen sink, and to the upper left is where all the medications were kept.
Was that a locked or an unlocked cabinet?
Unlocked.
And were the medications in there kept current?
Oh, no.
Can you describe what you mean by that?
I believe when I moved out, there was amoxicillin of mine from 10 years prior. So just whatever anyone had that they didn't finish up, or they, instead of going and turning it in or flushing down the toilet or whatnot, you just threw that medicine in the cabinet.
Downstairs in the lower level, the area that you said Dan would hang out in, was there a source of heat down there?
Yes, a wood stove.
Can you talk about that wood stove and how it worked in your house?
So the wood stove was the only source of heating we used typically. It was what we used to heat the entire house. So you kept the tea kettle of water on top of it, and sometimes it'd get fairly hot down there, so you could heat the entire house.
Was it common for your family to utilize the wood stove?
Yes,
Can you talk about that?
that's all we used for heat,
Was there a reason that the wood stove was the primary source of heat in your house?
because heating through the heating company is too expensive.
And was that an opinion that was expressed by a particular person in the house?
Very often, yes.
And who was that?
Dan.
Would Dan say things to you or other members of your family about the cost of heating?
Yes.
What kinds of things would he say?
We were poor and couldn't afford to heat our house that way, and we had to be frugal.
The wood stove would require restocking. Yes. And who was primarily responsible for that?
To restock the wood for the wood stove. Dan would chop the wood for the wood stove in the summer, but typically, he was gone a lot of winter time, so my mom and I would take turns restocking the wood.
And what was the point of the tea kettle on the stove?
For an air humidifier.
And was it common for your family to keep water, or refill the kettle with water?
Constantly. I would get in trouble if I let it go out, essentially.
From that downstairs room, could you hear things going on the floor directly above?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
So it's directly above. We always had to have all the vents open because that's how the heat from the basement went up to every other room. So everything's right above you. You could hear doors opening, doors closing, people walking. You could hear heated or, raised voices if someone was up there and a louder noise. And
Was there a lot of insulation between the two floors that kind of muffled sounds?
I wouldn't say so.
During the time that you lived there as an adult, did you become close with your mother?
Yes.
Was it a development of a relationship beyond just being a kid?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
My mom is my best friend. She was my daughter's best friend. I couldn't ask for a better role model or just a better person to be around. And I didn't even have to find her and choose her. She was just there. I was lucky enough to just have her there.
Where do you work, Brooke?
Kootenai Health.
Where'd your mom work?
Kootenai Health.
So would you see your mom every single day?
Every work day, the only exception would be Fridays because she did not work Fridays, so Monday through Thursday.
And when you were living there, would you see her every day?
Yes.
Was your mom an affectionate grandma towards your daughter?
Very.
What ways?
She would watch her, no questions asked. They went shopping together. They went and did their nails together. They would go on hikes together. They were just, my mom made every effort to be involved in my daughter's life to the fullest of her capability.
The relationship that your mom had with you and with your daughter continued even after the two of you moved out.
Yes.
Did you continue to talk to your mom nearly every day, even when you weren't living there?
Yes.
Even when you didn't see her at work?
Yes.
Maybe a little too much sometimes?
Probably annoyingly so sometimes.
When you were living there, did you ever go into the bathroom when your mom was taking a bath?
I did.
Did you ever have the opportunity to observe her while she was in the bath?
Yes.
When you had those opportunities to observe your mom in the bath, did you ever notice her to take her purse into the bathroom with her?
I wouldn't say it was common, but it did happen.
If she did take her purse into the bathroom, where would she put it?
She would put it next to the bath so she could reach it.
And did she take it in the bath for particular reason?
Yeah, sometimes she would need to pay bills or whatnot. And since she was in there, she felt like she had time to do that in there.
Did she take anything else in there?
She would take her phone if she was talking or texting someone, and her glasses so she could see.
Where would your mom keep her purse if it wasn't with her?
Often she left it in the car. Sometimes she would keep it in the kitchen, on the kitchen counter.
And would that car be in the garage?
Yes.
Would that car be unlocked?
Yes.
Question approach the witness.
Amen.
You know your mom to like to take selfies?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's already been entered into evidence as states 33A.
Oh no, I hope they're not naked selfies.
C, and 34. Do you recognize these? What do you recognize these to be?
This is my mom with her cat, Betty. There's Betty again, and those are her legs in the bathtub.
These appear to be accurate pictures.
Yes.
You know your mom, and I guess Betty to be.
Yes.
Where should it publish?
Amen.
Objection, I want to hear from the cat.
Let's start with 33A. So who's in that picture?
That's the side of my mom's face, and there's Betty.
What do we see in the background there?
In the background,
She's not very good at taking selfies.
there's a scale on the floor, and upper there's a black towel and a pink towel.
Based on anything in this picture, are you able to tell which bathroom this is?
Yes, this is her bathroom.
Do you recognize the towels in that picture?
I do.
Anything particular about them?
They were the towels that matched the bathroom, so you shouldn't use those on a daily basis, and you were instructed not to touch them.
So when your mom used that bathroom for her nightly bath, did she use those pink and black towels to dry off?
No.
Who's in that picture?
There's Betty.
Anybody else?
My mom's arm on the side.
What's behind Betty?
It looks like a shampoo bottle.
Were those bottles always in that bathroom?
Yes.
And were those?
That's my other thought. These are pics while she's taking a dump. Like, that's like, come on. Come on, Kendy.
Shampoo bottles that your mom would use to wash her hair in the mornings?
Yes.
Were those facing into the bath?
In this picture, yes.
Who's in that picture?
There's Betty again.
I don't know. I'm trying to lighten this up a little bit so that you can see it. So, is that your mom in the bath?
Yes.
And if you can step out if you need to see, I know that there's a little bit of glare going on. It appears that this particular photo, she's in water.
Yes.
Would you agree with that? Okay. Are you able to see where the water line is on that picture?
Yeah.
Would that be typical for your mom to fill the bath up that much?
Yeah, that looks right.
There's your mom's legs?
Yes.
Is that about how she would like to stretch out in the bathtub?
Yes.
Did you and your mom ever communicate through text?
Yes.
Is your mom easy to communicate with through text?
If you learned how to understand her, yeah.
Describe what you mean by that.
So she just did a lot of typos, and she did not care to fix them. It was the receiver's job to figure out what she had said.
Did your mom text a lot?
Oh, yeah.
Were the typos in her text messages the result of dyslexia or a learning issue?
Not at all.
Did your mom wear glasses? You mentioned your mom wears glasses
Yes.
sometimes. Was that the reason for the typos?
I don't believe so.
Did she wear glasses all the time?
Not all the time. If she was reading or something like that, yes.
All right, we're taking. Yeah, here we go, guys. Let's skip ahead. Whoop, 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 whoop. All right, here we go.
You and Dan butt heads.
Often.
Why are you asking if they're butt heads? That's not nice. I get it. That they aren't getting along.
Why go along?
Way more than we did, yes.
In your many years of living with Dan and Kendy, both as a child and as an adult, did you have opportunities to view Dan interact with your mother?
Yes.
Would that be both out in public as well as in the privacy of your home?
Yes.
Was there a difference in the way that Dan treated your mother in public and how he treated her in the privacy of your home?
100%.
How did Dan treat Kendy out in public?
Lovingly.
In what ways?
He would hold on to her. He would kind of like kiss her on the cheek or whatnot. He would be helpful to, go grab her a drink or something like that.
What about at home?
It was different at home.
Did you ever hear Dan speak to your mom in a way that wasn't kind?
Yes, often.
What kinds of things would you hear Dan say?
He would call her fat, a whore, stupid, dumb Indian, a slut, a bitch.
Were these things that you heard once or more than once?
More than once.
Were these things that you heard as a child or as an adult?
Both.
Were these things that you heard with greater frequency closer to her death?
Yes.
In your many years living with Dan and Kendy, did you have observations to observe Dan speak to Kendy about money?
Yes, often.
Can you describe that?
It was never a pleasant conversation. He was always frustrated with the amount of money she was spending, what she was spending money on.
Did you ever hear Dan talk about his own money?
Yes.
What would he say?
All of the money Dan had brought into the house was strictly his money. And then her money was deposited into the household, but that was still not her money.
Did you ever hear Dan say things to you or to your mom about purchases for the household?
What do you mean?
What sort of little things like groceries or things like that?
So my mom was responsible to buy all the groceries out of the joint account that her paycheck fed to in as well. Yes.
And would Dan be happy about how she managed that?
Never.
What about big things like campers, motorcycles?
That was used with Dan's money, so that was not a fight.
And then if they were used with Dan's money, were they Dan's things?
Yes.
Do you ever know Dan to keep track of bank accounts or bills?
He kept track of those type of things daily.
What do you mean by that?
He would check the bank accounts daily, and if there was charges he did not approve of, he would reach out to my mom or myself.
Did you ever hear Dan say specific things about your mom's weight?
Often.
What would you say?
He would often come up behind her and grab her sides and tell her to stop eating so much, tell her that she needs to go work out more often, call her a fat ass, and say he would have a workout regimen that could make her finally look good.
Did you know your mom to do anything about the comments Dan made?
My mom was constantly trying to lose weight.
What kinds of things did she do to lose weight?
My mom would take weight loss pills. My mom would go to the gym. She would wake up 4 a.m. to go to the gym. She, would often be on diets.
Did there come a point in time where your mom shared with you an intent to do something a little bit more drastic than that?
There's been, for a long time, my mom has wanted plastic surgery, yes.
Anything specific?
She was very self-conscious about her stomach from her C-sections and wanted a tummy tuck, and she did not like how her breasts appeared either.
Did she ever, in 2020 or 2021 tell you that she'd taken any steps towards doing that?
Yes.
What did she do?
She had reached out for consultation with Dr. Owsley's office.
Was that for a specific procedure?
Yes, that would have been for the tummy tuck and the breast augmentation.
Did you ever hear Dan say anything to your mother about her mental health?
He called her crazy and that she needed to get on medication all the time.
Now,
I mean, is that a lie?
let's say.
I mean, most women are crazy, guys. You know that.
We're not living at that house, is that correct?
Correct.
Were you still corresponding with your mother at the frequency that you previously described?
Yes.
And you would see her in person how many days a week?
At a minimum 4 days a week.
You and your mother, did you work in the same department at Kootenai?
We didn't work in the same department, but our departments interacted with each other.
And so at work, you would have opportunities to cross paths with her?
Yes.
Did she seek you out at work?
Yes.
During that period of time, did your mother share with you any future intentions?
Yes.
What kinds of things was she telling you about her future intentions?
Her intentions were to get divorced. She was going to move forward with the plastic surgery. She was looking forward to buying a house. She had purchased a hot tub. She had begun seeing someone.
She told you that.
Yes, she did.
When did your mother tell you that she had begun seeing someone?
It was either late December or early January, a few months. I want to say it was at least 2 months, so I guess that'd be December.
Did she tell you who it was?
Yes.
Who was it?
Daniel Prado.
Did she tell you whether or not she had an intent to form a future with him?
Yes, she did.
What did she say?
She said that he was helping her buy the house. She said they had discussed if they moved in together. She didn't tell me if there had been a decision regarding that yet, that he had offered her to work for him, but she was not planning to do so. She invited me to go on a trip with him, me and my daughter.
What trip?
It was to some concert. It was a country concert, so I don't really remember.
Did you tell Dan?
I did not.
When you and your mom would text, did you communicate through like the normal text feature, or did you use an application?
We used text and Facebook Messenger.
Permission to approach the witness with 42 A and B?
You may.
Actually, just A. I'm handing you some marked states 42A. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What do you recognize this to be?
This is the hot tub that she bought at the fairgrounds.
Is this a conversation between you and your mother?
Yes.
Does that appear to be accurate portion of a conversation that you had with your mother?
Yes.
And to admit 42A?
Okay.
Publish?
You may. So either.
Judge, while the jury is looking at that, may I approach Madam Clerk?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, prosecutor's very pale today.
Similar to Dan's handwriting. Do you view their handwritings?
Yes.
Did your mom's handwriting look similar to Dan's handwriting?
Not at all.
I'm going to publish 71B, which has already been admitted into evidence, and I'm going to also show you 36A, B, C, and D, which have also already been admitted.
If you can step out into the well to see, you're more than welcome.
Okay.
71B.
That is my mom's handwriting, Kendy's.
How do you know?
Very loopy and kind of messy.
36A.
That is Dan's handwriting.
36B.
Dan's handwriting.
36C.
Dan's handwriting.
36D.
Dan's handwriting.
Some of this bolding, underlining, is that also something that was common to see in Dan's writing?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to turn your attention to late January of 2021.
Okay.
You previously testified that your mom did not work on Fridays.
Correct.
At some point, did you become aware of an incident that occurred on Thursday, January 29th? Maybe it was
Friday,
January 29th?
Yes, yes.
When would have been the next time that you saw her?
The following Monday.
When you saw your mother that following Monday, what was her demeanor? Don't tell me what she said. What's her demeanor?
Stressed, scared.
On that Monday, January 29th, did you discuss with your mother any future plans that she held on that day?
So you just said on that Monday, January.
I'm sorry. On that Monday after January 29th, did you discuss with your mother any plans that she held on that day?
Yes.
What plans did she have in her mind on that day?
After work, she was going to go get her nails done.
Did she have any long-term plans that she talked with you about that day?
Yes, she also needed, after the nail appointment, she needed to get home and start cleaning her house as the realtors were going to be there to look at it. I can't remember if they were coming Tuesday or Wednesday.
Did your mom tell you whether or not she was planning to divorce Dan?
Yes.
Did your mother ever tell you or not whether she was going to utilize an attorney to assist her in that process?
Yes.
On that Monday that you saw her at work, did she express to you her continued intent to divorce Dan?
Yes.
Do you recall what time of day-ish you interacted with your mom on that day?
Noon, 1-ish, right there. It was like her lunch hour.
At the time that you saw her, was she suffering from any major injuries?
Not that I could see.
Brooke, did there come to be a time where you found out that your mother was dead?
Yes.
How did you find out that your mother was dead?
Dan got a hold of me.
Did he call you on the phone?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately what time and what day Dan called you?
February 3rd, 6:30-ish.
And at 6:30 a.m.?
Yes.
Where were you when you got this call?
I was in my car, ready to go to work.
When you saw Dan calling on your phone, was that unusual or not?
Very unusual.
When you answered, what did you hear Dan say?
I believe he said that something had happened or there had been an accident, something along those lines.
Was it a lengthy conversation?
It was short.
What?
I hung up.
What?
After he said that happened, he then said she shot herself, something along the lines of she shot herself. I hung up to call 911.
Did you have a second opportunity to speak to Dan?
Yes.
How did that work?
I can't remember if he called me or I called him. One of us called each other probably roughly an hour to 2 hours later. I think it had been some time.
When you reconnected, what did Dan say?
He maintained that she shot herself.
Brooke, when you reconnected with Dan, what was your emotional state at that point in time?
Probably not good. I was probably a little hysterical.
Were you crying?
Yes.
Were your emotions racing?
Yes.
Were you excited in the sense that your feelings were elevated?
Yes.
Was your voice raised?
Yes.
When you called Dan back, what did you say?
I-
I'm sorry, that was not what you testified to. When you reconnected with Dan, what did you say?
I asked him what did he do, and I told him I know that she wouldn't do that. She would not have shot herself. He kind of mumbled around a bit. I believe I got to him asking if he was in custody and if the cops were there.
Did you yell at him?
Yes.
During this period of time, were you also in connection with Courtney,
The
her employer?
Off and on, yes.
At some point, did you speak with Dan in person that day?
I did not.
Did you have a later opportunity to speak with Dan in person?
I have not.
Have you spoken with Dan in person since then?
I have not.
Is there a point in time that you were involved in making arrangements for a funeral and things of that nature?
Yes.
Was there a point in time where you were present for a phone conversation where Dan was on speakerphone?
At the funeral home, yes.
Were there other people present as well?
Yes.
What was the purpose of that call with Dan?
The funeral home director was trying to get a hold of him so he could finalize what he had to do.
And during that call, did Dan make any statements?
He did.
What did he say?
He said that he would pay for how we wanted her to be either cremated or buried. He would pay for that. That was all he would be doing.
Did you attend the funeral?
I did.
Did a lot of people attend the funeral?
They did.
Did Dan attend the funeral?
He did not.
I don't think I have any other questions for you, Mr. Johnson.
Before we turn to cross-examination, this might be a good time for a 5-minute break. So we'll take about, say, 10 minutes. A big recess. All rise, Mr. Jerry.
Well, guys, I mean, we're getting there.
You can see. I just want to address the gallery briefly. Everyone has been so far very well behaved, and I appreciated it. There's been no emotional outbursts or anything like that. And so I want to keep it that way. When the attorneys brought it to my attention, there's a few times where there's some laughter and so forth. It wasn't over the top or inappropriate, but I just want to remind everyone to make sure that you don't respond to testimony that you hear from the state. So I'm not lecturing anybody. Everyone's doing pretty well, but I just want to put that as a reminder. So, okay, we'll be in recess for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's not a good look that he didn't go to the funeral. It's not a good look, man. He could definitely probably done that. That would have been a lot better for him. But, you know, you hate her enough, you want to choke her out and then blow her head off. I guess you're not going to the funeral. So, we'll skip ahead here and travel in time.
Yes.
You said they had a motorcycle. There's a motorcycle. They would go on motorcycle rides together, right?
Yes.
They would. You said they had a camper. They would take camping trips together.
Yes.
Now, you described her on Monday wanting to get her nails done.
Yes.
Is that something she'd like to do?
Yes.
She do it often.
Yes.
You talked about a bath. When she would do her bath, would she often have the stereo on?
I wouldn't say often.
But she would.
Rarely.
But she liked to put bubbles in the bath.
Yes.
That was her. That was her place to relax.
Yes.
Can you read it?
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Next witness.
Matt Kulak.
I mean, guys, I'm serious. That not showing up to a funeral thing is not a good idea. Yes, he would have had to fake cry again at the funeral, and that wasn't very good.
If you would face my clerk, raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yep. Thank you, sir. Do you have a seat there? As best you can, speak into the microphone. Thank you. You may record.
Could you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Matthew James Kulak, K-U-L-A-C.
Are you employed?
Yes.
How are you employed?
Oh, I'm employed at Kootenai Medical.
Do you work in a particular department?
Yes, I'm in Central Services at Kootenai Medical.
And what is central services?
It's the supply part of the hospital.
What kind of supplies do you deal with?
We deal with everything that the nurses and doctors need to do, from surgeries to putting a Band-Aid on a person.
So would that be things like gloves, things like surgical utensils, things like that?
We do have a few of those things, yes.
Do you also deal with medications?
Not much, no.
You deal with chemicals?
A little bit, yes.
How long have you worked
About 14 years now.
During your time working in the services department at Kootenai, did you come to know an individual by the name of Kendy Howard?
Yes.
How long did you work together?
Yes, we did.
How long did you work together?
About 13 years.
In your 13 years working together, was that together in that same department?
Yes, it was.
Did you work similar shifts?
Pretty close to the same shifts, yes.
And so did you see Kendy most days that you went to work
Most days I went to work, yes, I saw her.
for 13 years?
Pretty close to that, yes.
Can you kind of describe a little bit about what your job involves on a day-to-day level?
Sure. When we first, as receivers, when we first get to work, we have a big shipment done that's called from Medline. That's our main supplier for the hospital. And so they will bring anywhere between 5 to 10 pallets of product a day, and it gets staged in different areas. And as receivers, there's normally 4 to 5 of us, and we break down so like this part that goes into the central services to be broke down into like pieces. We start on that first. So, and that entails of like one person will grab the paperwork for that order, and the other 3 people will start calling out like item 5, and there's 6 of these cases of them. And as we break them down and set them off to the side, we do that until all items are counted for. And then once they're accounted for, we verify that, and then we grab carts and we start breaking those pieces out of the cases and put them on the shelf as eaches.
Would the same person do the same job every day, or would you guys kind of mix it up?
We pretty much do the same job every day. If somebody's missing, you wouldn't be on the bigger order. You'd be on the other side of the wall doing like the CSMOR orders, which is the main OR. It's the same concept, just different parts of it.
Was there a particular part of that Kendy likes to do?
She was always on the CS side doing the breaking up those big pallets and putting it around in the cleaner rooms.
Now, would you be the ones that would be unloading that pallet off the truck?
Most of the time, no. Medline will bring them and stage them for us inside the building. They're normally there before we get there.
You're just taking them off the pallets and putting them on the shelves?
Yeah, we're taking individually boxes off the pallet, putting them on the, once they're lined up on one side because we counted them and we verified them, and then we take them and take the pieces out and put them on the shelf.
Sounds like kind of a physical job.
It is.
Is it common to get bruises at your job?
You get a couple here and there. So when you pick up a box wrong and it turns on you, that kind of thing. But
is it a dangerous job?
No.
Is it a job that has safety procedures in place?
Yes, I mean, we all have. We go through back training when you get there. And you just kind of make sure you just lift with your knees and up your back, that kind of stuff. So
if someone were to get injured on the job, are there policies in place for Kootenai?
Yes, we have a program through employee health. It's called the Minus program. So if you happen to fall on the ice or pick up a box wrong and you twist your back or something like that, cut yourself, you could go to the computer or you can go to your supervisors and tell them what happened, and it gets wrote up in the computer, so that way it's verified that what happened, and then they figure out from there what the next step is for you.
If there was, say, a major injury on the job, would you be allowed to just walk it off, or would you be required to report it to a supervisor?
That is something you're supposed to report it to your supervisor, so they can determine if you need to go to do the emergency room now, or we can hold off for a day or two, that kind of thing.
Was there ever a point in time, let me play back a little bit. So you and Kendy worked together for 13 years.
About 13 years, yes.
Were you friends?
Yes.
What was Kendy's demeanor like on a typical workday?
Well, she was pretty high-spirited. Kendy didn't have too many secrets when it comes time. She liked you. She liked you. If you didn't, you got her matched. You knew it. So.
Was Kendy chatty?
Yes, she was very chatty, especially with with the girls, more the girls than the guys. But I was always considered part of the girls, as she would always say.
Over the course of your years together, did Kendy share things with you about her life?
A few things, yes.
Was Kendy a person that you frequently socialized with outside of work, though?
Yeah, we'd text every now and then. We'd show pictures, like if she went fishing, she'd catch a fish. Hey, look what I caught! Kind of things like that. Yeah.
But you weren't like regularly going to her home or anything like that.
No.
In July of 2020, did Kendy Howard show you a photograph that caught your attention?
Yes.
Permission to approach Madam Clerk.
Okay.
So Mr. Kulak, what was it about that photograph that Kendy showed you in July 2020 that stood out to you?
It was a good sized bruise on her
Do you recall where?
It was kind of up in her chest area on the side.
Was this a bruise that you saw on her person or just a picture of it?
I saw it on a picture of it.
And she showed that to you on her phone?
Yes.
Permission to approach the witness with what has already been entered into evidence as 29.
You have?
Showing you it's already in evidence as states 29. Do you recognize this?
Yep, that's the picture she showed me off the phone.
Permission to publish?
Yeah.
Stated this is the picture that she showed you. Do you recognize who's in that picture?
It's definitely Kendy.
And do you recognize what she's wearing?
She's wearing our Kootenai Central Service work shirt, yes.
When she showed you this photo, did she indicate to you whether this was an injury that she sustained on the job?
Yes, it did not happen at work.
After July of 2020, in the time before her death, did Kendy Howard talk to you about plans for the future?
Yes.
What kinds of things did she share with you?
She was going to move to Kamei, go back home and take a little time off, and she had a job kind of lined up, and she was buying a house, and she was just going to start all over at home.
When Kendy would talk to you about these future plans, what was her demeanor?
She's very happy about it. She was excited to go.
Did you work with Kendy Howard on February 2nd of 2021?
Yes.
Do you recall what your shift was then?
I believe I was on a 10-hour shift that time.
What time did you start in the morning?
I started at 4:30 and ended at 3.
Is that the same shift that Kendy had?
Hers, she had a 10-hour shift, but it started a little later than me.
Like half an hour?
An hour, I think, yeah.
So would it be fair to say that you and Kendy worked together for the majority of your shift?
Yes,
So you would have gotten off a little earlier than her?
right.
Okay. On February 2nd of 21, did you observe a major injury on Kendy?
No.
Did you hear, or were you called into any meetings about someone sustaining a major injury?
No.
Did you observe any accidents on the job?
No.
Were you working with any chemicals on that day?
Not that I can think of.
Were you working with any hot liquids on that day?
No.
Typical for you to work with hot liquids?
No.
Would you approach?
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you what's already in evidence as states 18F. Did you observe Kendy Howard have anything like this on February 2nd at work with you that day?
No.
Permission to publish?
Yeah.
In the time that you worked with Kendy Howard on February 2nd, you did not observe her to have this injury to her arm.
No, I did not.
Would an injury like that have resulted in a meeting with the supervisor?
Yes.
Probably meeting with the whole staff?
Yeah, we would have been told something. Yeah.
I don't have any other questions for you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Thank you. I have no question.
Thank you, sir. You may sit down.
May I give these back to Madam Clerk?
You may, thank you.
Paul Berger is next.
Okay. Paul Berger. Go ahead, sir. Step forward and face my clerk, raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you. Thank you. You may inquire.
Thank you, Judge. Can you say your whole name and spell your last?
Paul Berger, B-E-R-G-E-R.
How are you employed?
I'm a captain with the Idaho State Police.
Will you walk us through your law enforcement career, please?
Yes. So in the summer of 1990, I went to work for the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office, where I worked for about 4 years until 1994, at which time I went to the Idaho State Police and have been there since.
Can you tell us your various positions within the Idaho State Police?
Within the Idaho State Police, I started as a trooper, and then I promoted into detectives. From detectives, I went to detective sergeant and detective lieutenant, and finally the district commander here in Coeur d'Alene.
So as a district commander or captain, what are your duties?
My duties are to make sure that the District 1 office here in Coeur d'Alene runs smoothly. I am in control of both investigations and the patrol, and make sure that those duties that are performed by those agents are those persons in law enforcement.
Hold on, we gotta do this one. Oh, real quick. On Hunger for $2 says, I'm gonna come. Don't come. Don't come. I'm so sorry, on Hunger. I just saw that. Your Honor, I would like the record to reflect that the witness's business to party ratio is solid. The record shall so reflect, counsel. That was a dope haircut.
Enforcement are being done properly and taking care of day-to-day exercises that come in.
What kind of area does District 1 encompass?
District 1 goes from the Canadian border all the way to the Waitau County border. We have the five northern counties: Boundary, Bonner, Kootenai, Shoshone, and Benoit County.
And are you the person responsible for all
FYI, guys, this occurred in the panhandle of Idaho, which is like no one lives there.
of ISP employees within District 1?
I am.
About how many ISP employees are you supervising within District 1?
Supervising probably around 80. There's probably 97 people in the building. We also house forensics, which I do not run, and we have dispatch also.
Okay. Can you describe for us how a trooper becomes a trooper in terms of post?
Guys, Boundary County, Idaho, way up on the border, that's where Ruby Ridge happened. Like, this is the middle of fucking nowhere.
Sure. So when I was a Shoshone County deputy, I went to the Idaho Post Academy, which at that time was 7 weeks. The academy there, you learn the basic operations of being a police officer, including arrest techniques, crime scenes, interview, physical fitness, crash investigations, and anything that pertains to the basics of law enforcement in general. And then after that, when I became an Idaho State Police trooper, I had to attend a 14-week ISP academy, which was also including several things, of course, that work in those specific areas. Idaho State Police really concentrates on crash investigations, but in those crash investigations, you learn how to do crime scene investigations, you learn how to do report writing, you have arrest techniques, you have physical fitness. Arrest techniques and physical fitness are every other day during the 14 weeks. They also include accident investigations and other basic law enforcement jobs that are going to be necessary as a Idaho State trooper.
As a trooper then going through post, you learn the basics of DNA and how DNA is left and how you can collect DNA.
You do, yes. Specifically, I'd go back to like a crash investigation, and in a crash investigation, you would be trying to determine who the driver of a vehicle was. If you had multiple people in the vehicle and there was one person that died in the fatality, you would go back in and try to collect evidence, DNA evidence of who was sitting in the seat of the driver's seat. So in some cases, I've actually pulled teeth out of the steering wheel, which is for the DNA purposes, as well as identifying who was driving it, as well as hair and blood and other things that might be in the vehicle to determine who actually is driving it. And as a detective, I've been to numerous trainings.
What about fingerprints? Does an ISP trooper get trained in the basics of what can leave a latent print and what can't?
I would say yes, especially in my case, I had skills before that, but I mean, we understand where fingerprints can be, lifted off of, and certain areas are really hard to lift fingerprints. So you realize you look for the areas that are actually easier to pull a print to maybe see who was touching that object, like the knobs or anything that would actually have a smooth surface where you can lift a fingerprint from.
Are troopers taught how to shoot their firearms?
Yes.
Extensively?
Yes.
Okay. And once you become a trooper, how does one become a firearms instructor?
I was a firearms instructor, and to become a firearms instructor, you had to take the basic firearms qualification, which was for pistols and shotguns at that time, and you have to score a higher level than the average person that would be shooting on the range. It was a 95. And you went through a week-long class, and you had to teach and do other things pertaining to firearms. And then also, every year, you have to also take that test and qualify with that 95% or higher to maintain your firearms instructor.
Okay. What's SWAT?
The SWAT is Special Weapons and Tactics. It's a specialized team within law enforcement that is used to deal with situations that are above what a normal law enforcement officer would be, like hostage situations, search warrants, anything that requires a higher level of training and expertise would be what SWAT would be.
Is it considered a prestigious appointment within ISP to be on ISP SWAT?
It is.
When you're being taught to be an ISP trooper, are you taught how to take someone into custody?
Yes.
Can you run through the basics of that for us?
So you have either a non-compliant person or a compliant person. Compliant people are those who will do what you tell them to do to get them into the handcuffs. Non-compliant persons have to be dealt with more force. And for a non-compliant person, you would use techniques to either pin them up against the car or take them to the ground. Getting them on the ground makes it easier for you to control that person. So there's over the 14 weeks, like I said, every other day, we were going through arrest techniques, different types of arrest techniques, using the PR-24s, which are no longer around, as well as other tools that we have at our disposal to try to get somebody into custody. But taking them to the ground or pinning them against the car were the main reasons.
And so what would be the easiest way to take someone to the ground?
We're taught several techniques to take somebody to the ground, but one of the techniques would be you would do knee strikes, you would do trips, you would do any type of thing that you could spin them to the ground. So sometimes it would work, the techniques you were taught, sometimes you would just have to be in a fight to get somebody to the ground. So it could take a lot of force to get somebody to the ground.
Is the goal to get them on the ground on their stomach?
It is.
Why is that?
Getting them on their stomach makes it a lot easier for us to get the handcuffs in behind their back. If you have them on their back, you're still gonna have to roll them over to get the handcuffs behind their back. So it's easier just to take somebody to the ground and be on top where their back is, so you can get those arms peeled out from underneath them or wherever to get the handcuffs back on the person.
Are you taught as a trooper the dangers of positional asphyxia?
Yes.
Can you describe what that is?
One of the best ways to describe it is the George Floyd case. While there was drugs on board him, there was also issues with that pertain to when you put somebody on the ground and you're actually putting force upon their back or on their neck or wherever, you're going to be pushing their body down into the ground, which doesn't allow them to get a full breath of air in. So we also used to do hobbling, which is where we would restrain somebody's legs and you would actually tie their legs to the handcuffs on the back, and then they would be laying on their stomach in the back seats of the patrol car, and they would actually get positional asphyxia because they couldn't, depending upon the size of the person or whatever, they couldn't get the air into their lungs to be able to breathe properly. So positional asphyxia basically is just the pressing of the chest where you can't get enough air into your lungs.
So I take it then ISP troopers are taught the basics of asphyxia.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can't even hobble anymore. The hobbles are actually now used where you tie their legs and you you tie the rope to something else, so it doesn't actually attach to their handcuffs where they're not going to be able to breathe.
As a trooper on the road during the course of years of employment with ISP, does one become exposed to a lot of death?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
In 34 years of law enforcement, I couldn't even tell you how much death I've seen. I've seen death in, homicide cases. I've seen death in fatality crashes. I've seen death, from suicide. I've seen death in a variety of ways.
And so does one, so to speak, become accustomed to it if you do that sort of work long enough?
You have to become accustomed to it or it'll drive you nuts.
As an ISP trooper, do you become familiar with the sound of gunshots?
Yes.
Why?
Throughout training, you're shooting your firearms at all times. You also, as a trainer, are involved in the actual training of other officers. So you have the firearms going off all the time. Situations I've been in shootings. I've observed suicides occur, and yeah, you're around gunshots. And plus, I've been hunting my whole life, so I've been around gunshots my whole life. And as a trooper, you would be around those too.
And so you would become, as a trooper, aware of gunshots that were fired in your vicinity?
Oh, yes.
Okay. You know Dan Howard?
I do.
How do you know Dan Howard?
Dan and I went to the academy together in 1994.
So how long have you known him?
Since the academy.
In 1994?
1994.
Is he here today?
95. Yes, he is.
Can you please point him out, just where he's seated, tell us what he's wearing.
He's sitting at the defendant's table. He's wearing a blue blazer with a white shirt and glasses.
So when you went to the academy with Dan Howard, was that with a group of other men that were going to become troopers?
We had 7 men and 1 woman. Yes.
Okay. And how long was the academy again?
It was 14 weeks.
So were you around him pretty constantly for that 14 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get to know Dan Howard fairly well?
Yes.
After that, perhaps a period of time went by, did you eventually end up working up here with him?
Yes, I did.
How long did that go on for?
I don't remember when Dan came to District 1. I was here before he got there, and we worked with each other there. I was a detective when he came up as a trooper.
All right. So are you familiar with his career?
I am.
Are you familiar with what he's done in ISP?
I am.
At some point, was Dan Howard a firearms instructor?
He was.
Do you know how long that went on for or not?
I believe he started in Lewiston, so I'm not sure how long. He started as a firearms instructor before I did.
At some point in his career, did Dan Howard become a member of SWAT?
He did.
You know how long that went on for?
I'm not exactly sure how long that was.
Was that while he was up here?
I believe he was still on SWAT when he was up here, yes.
And when he was up here, was he a firearms instructor as well?
He was.
Knowing Dan Howard professionally, as long as you know him, can you describe for us how he displays emotion?
He's pretty stoic.
And can you describe for us how he reacts to stress?
Depending upon stress, he can be either stoic or I've seen him get very upset.
When he does display emotion, how is that displayed?
In my experience, it was anger.
And how quick can he show anger?
It was pretty quick.
Are you aware of whether or not Dan Howard is physically a strong person?
He's very strong, very fit.
No further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Captain. So, Captain, on you mentioned about anger a moment ago. Your relationship with Dan was professional, correct?
Correct.
You weren't friends.
Not friends.
So, there are times where an officer would show anger over many different causes, correct?
There could be, yes.
Now, you stated, or you mentioned a story of the pulling a tooth out of a car, correct?
Yes.
So the officers are trained in evidence collection of some sort, correct?
That's correct.
But they're not trained on how to scrub or transfer DNA, correct? In post?
In post, I believe they have some basic knowledge of it. I haven't been to post for a long time.
Okay. And being around firearms, different firearms sound differently when they're fired, correct?
That's correct.
So a lot of it depends on the caliber, size of the gun.
Situation, location, yeah.
What else is going on, stereo or anything else?
What's that?
No further questions. Thank you.
Okay.
No further questions.
Need to redirect?
Thank you. In terms of the training that Mr. Johnson touched on, does that encompass rendering aid to people?
Yes.
Does that encompass rendering aid to people that have suffered from trauma?
Yes.
In terms of training for
Okay, when someone has a hole in the back of their fucking head, is there anything you can do about that? No. When people shoot themselves in the head, are they generally dead? Yes. That'd be my recross.
ISP troopers, especially SWAT, are they trained in situations
Because now they're going to make the argument, Dan Howell is training and he didn't do anything.
that include outdoor firing of their weapons,
Yes.
as well as indoor firing of their weapons?
Yes.
So do ISP troopers that are on SWAT become accustomed to the sound of gunshots within an enclosed situation?
Probably more so than a regular trooper would be, yes.
And would recognize the sign of a gunshot within an enclosed structure?
I would assume so, yes, based on the fact that they do training within houses and shoot houses and stuff like that. They should be around that quite often, yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have more, Judge.
You may.
Judge, we have the ability to put on some more of these Dan Howard, Kendy Howard text, another big volume of them. But we are going quite a bit faster than we thought we were, and we anticipate ending sooner next week than we did before. And so with all of that said, would the court be inclined to end today now? Or would the court like us to produce this evidence for the jury to read tonight?
I don't have a strong preference. I'm sure we want to use our time that we've got as efficiently as possible, but if we think we're much ahead of schedule, we could break early. I don't know if the jury has some preference. We could give you some time to read a little bit more. We could break early. I didn't know how to ask it. I've just seen a lot of kind of either way.
Or here, yeah, I guess that's, so let's use our time wisely over here.
Okay, let's, if you have the ability to put on some text evidence, this will be just simply kind of reading like you did earlier. So, yeah, maybe we won't read for a whole hour, but let's get some of this,
Okay, so, we published 73A.
Sorry, I can't quite hear you.
73A, we're publishing judge 1 of 4, and we've handed out the first part.
Okay. Those will be published to the jury, and the jury just take the time to read it. When you're done reading, maybe look up and we'll give you the next section.
All right, let's see where they're at, guys. Guys, kind of waiting for something to happen here, but let's see if we actually do anything. So it's 40 minutes of the jury fucking around. Great. Awesome. So that's it. Day 4 in the books. Yeah, that was a question I would have asked. So again, they got some plays guitar in a hardcore band. Yeah, that's the defense attorney. Yeah, that was awful. Like, he started asking about all the different things there. He's like, well, and they're gonna bring it up that Dan has all this training. I think he was on their SWAT team. He was all kinds of stuff. He ended up at the end of his career being a trainer. It was all the training, I think, not just the cops, but also training recruits. So there's a lot of problems for him here. So he's got a lot of issues. And I think he's in a lot of trouble. I mean, right now it's just all circumstantial. But I can't wait to see what the defense has, because there's going to be a lot to it. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people do, like, how many times has anyone survived that wound? People do survive wounds to the face. Like getting shot through the neck, people have survived that as well. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen when you get shot in the head. And the bullet can cause, like, decompression. The bullet could skip off your skull. I mean, remember, I talked about this before. Your skull is a freaking helmet, and it's dense and hard. A lot of people have shots taken off their head. People survive, like, severe chunks of their brain disappearing. I mean, like, headshots are rough, but yes, generally they're fatal. But they do survive. A dude in my county just shit himself. I applaud your community's ability to not poop itself. That's a shame. That actually is pretty impressive. Like, your whole county's like, we ain't pooping ourselves no more. And one guy's like, fuck you. And protested just all over. Oh, he shot through the neck trying to off himself. Oh, well. He went like this? That's stupid. So. She ain't gonna take the stand. I think he might have to, because this isn't gonna look good for him. This is starting to build up, but I think they're getting to the point where they're getting close to the reasonable doubt threshold. So he might have to. We'll see what it looks like coming up. Remember, we're 2 days behind right now, so. By Francis, top of the head. Well, mainly it was like through the back of the head, but yes. Or you could do it like right behind the ear. So. Oh. All right, guys. So that is it. We are going to be back 8:30, getting started, and yeah, this one I actually like it. This is actually getting interesting. I think it's picking up steam. Did her brain leave her head? No, because she was shot through the mouth and it went out the back and severed her spinal cord. So it was a fatal shot. But no, I like how this is progressing. I like what's here. I like how this is going. And yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. So. Yeah, that's it, guys. In the meantime, I will see you tonight at 8:30 on Locals. We will be at potentiallycriminal.locals.com. If you guys are new, you can join us there. You can set up for 1 month free access, which the free access gets you access to the live shows. If you don't have access to the live shows, you're missing out, guys. You're missing out on all kinds of stuff. We talk about everything on the live shows that we don't talk about here. So everything. So what? Hold on. What the hell is this? So. Yeah, that's it, guys. We'll see you there. It's going to be a great time. That's a shame I know some. Yes, Delphi case set for May 13th. May 13th. Going for quite a while, a couple of weeks. Going to be very interesting. We are going to, depending on scheduling today or tomorrow, is when we'll do the Delphi kind of catch up, because 60 days out, guys, we're going into this full tilt. 60 days out. It's time to hit it. So we're going to do that. But we are going to figure that out. It'll either be tomorrow or Wednesday. Time will reveal. I'll let you guys know. So I'll see you guys at 8:30 tonight over on Locals. Bye. I followed the hearing Crumbly's dad. Bree, it's basically the same thing repeated over and over again for the first time through. If you ask David over on Make You Law Simple, it's basically a rerun. I might in a little while, but I'm probably gonna wait for a couple of days just because we've already seen all these witnesses, all the teachers crying and the cops crying and all that. What is that really gonna get us? So. I mean, not particularly. I'm not following it too much. Although I still have a feeling it doesn't really matter. There's like a 90% chance he's getting convicted anyway. But we'll take a look at it probably on Thursday, okay? So I will see you guys at 8:30 tonight. Take care, everybody. Bye.